Good evening. I call to order the Lake Havasu City Council regular meeting on Tuesday, May 14th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. We'll now have an invocation from Pastor Dr. David Bybee from Church Chapel, and then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Bud Watts from the Marine Corps League.
I just want to thank you for your hard work. And what a beautiful facility. I accidentally went to the wrong one tonight, but I'm glad I found this one in time. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Almighty God, creator of all that is, who called the universe into existence and calls us to surrender daily to you. My prayer is that the decisions this evening may prayerfully be informed by your wisdom and presence, and that our city may be a light of truth and life to all visitors and citizens. May our beauty of Lake Havasu City be matched by the beauty of our visitors, citizens, and those passing through. May the glory and wholeness of God be exalted and fill Lake Havasu City. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to our flag and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our national flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Watts, did you want to give an update about the Marine Corps League? Bud, did you want to say anything about the Marine Corps League?
Hoorah.
Yeah, nice. Well, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. And thank you for your service to our community. You guys do amazing work, and we appreciate it.
The only thing I really want to say is I fought and bled for that flag, and it means an awful lot to me. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
For letting me do that.
Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda is roll call. Ms. Williams, if you please call the roll.
Council members Nancy Campbell. Here. Michelle Lynn. Jenny Koch.
Here.
Jim Dolan.
Here.
David Lane.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cameron Moses.
Here.
Mayor Kal Sheehy.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5 is our consent agenda. Would any of the council members like to remove any of the items for separate discussion?
Mayor,
Yeah, Councilmember Koch,
motion?
please.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion from Councilmember Koch, a second from Councilmember Lane. We are ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 6 is correspondence, communications, petitions, announcements, and the city manager's report. Item 6.1 is to announce vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. Ms. Williams?
Mayor, City Council, this item is to announce both current and upcoming vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. The following is a listing of those vacancies. Airport Advisory Board, 1 regular pilot member, 1 regular non-pilot member, 1 alternate pilot member. Board of Adjustment, 3 regular members and 3 alternate members. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, 3 regular members and 1 student member. Planning and Zoning Commission, 3 regular members and 2 alternate members. The deadline to submit applications to the City Clerk's office for consideration of any current and upcoming vacancies is Friday, May 31st, 2024 at 5 p.m. Applications can be picked up at City Hall, and they're also available on the city's website at lhcaz.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.2 is our city manager's report. Good evening, Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. I'm having technical difficulties. There's a way for us to come back if possible, but right now my laptop is having some troubles.
Sure. Yeah, we can, we'll move on and then we'll come back when the laptop's not having troubles.
Thank you.
It's been the theme of our day, actually. We've had technology issues all day long. So we'll just move on to item 7, which is our public hearings. At each of the next public hearings, there will be a council presentation and discussion. And there will also be a public hearing as part of this process. So if anyone would like to address the city council during the public hearing, we encourage you to do so at that time. At the end of the meeting, there will be a call to the public where you can make comments in reference to anything within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City, but we can't have a two-way conversation at that point. So we just encourage you to have those conversations during the public hearing when it's appropriate. So we could have a two-way conversation and engage. So we'll move on to item 7.1, which is a Series 7 beer and wine liquor license, Golf and Brews, 2018 McCulloch Boulevard North, Unit A and F. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, Jared Thornton has applied for a Series 7 beer and wine bar liquor license for Golf and Brews located at 2018 McCulloch Boulevard North, Units A and F. All posting requirements have been met, all fees have been paid, and no objections were received. The location is properly zoned for a Series 7 liquor license. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also in attendance tonight to answer any questions from the council.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Are there any questions or comments from members of the council for Ms. Williams or the applicant? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor?
Vice Mayor Moses,
Yeah, motion.
please.
I move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control approve a Series 7 beer and wine bar liquor license for Golf and Brews, 2018 McCulloch Boulevard North, Unit A and F.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Moses. We have a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, are we ready to vote?
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.2 is adopt resolution number 24-3739, appointing members to the Lake Havasu City Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Ms. Williams?
Mayor and City Council, the city received one application requesting consideration for appointment as a student member position to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. This appointment is necessary to fill the current vacancy of a student member. The application review panel conducted interviews for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board on May 6, 2024, and recommends that Allison Strader be appointed as a student member with a term ending June 30th, 2026. The application is provided to you in the packet, and Ms. Strader is also here tonight to answer any questions from the City Council.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Ms. Strader, could you come up to the podium and just introduce yourself to the council and share with us why you want to serve on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board?
Hi, my name is Allie Strader. I'm a sophomore at Lake Havasu High School, and I applied because I am excited to see incredible changes within the community to help see new children grow up in the community.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for volunteering
Thank
for
you.
this service. Are there any questions from members of the council for Ms. Strader? Councilmember Lane?
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just do want to say what a pleasure it was when we did the interview with you, how articulate you were and how you stood on your own 2 feet. You come from quite the background, and you are definitely an asset to our community. So thank you for stepping up.
But plus, she helps you out with the Kiwanis flag routes.
Her entire family helps me. Her mom sits on the airport advisory board, and her sister used to sit on this board. I mean, it's a family affair, that's for sure. Giving back to the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for applying. All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor, motion?
Please.
I move to adopt resolution number 24-3739, appointing Allie Strader as a student member to the Lake Havasu City Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with a term ending June 30th, 2026.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lane, a second from Councilmember Campbell. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
All All right, we're going to go ahead and go back to item 6.2, Mr. Foggen, and then we'll be ready for the next item. So back to item 6.2 is the city manager's report. Good evening, Mr. Knutson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Once again, apologize for the technical difficulties and allowing Mr. Foggen to wait for one more moment. Since we last met at our last council meeting, Mayor, you proclaimed Arbor Day, City Clerks Week, Nurses Week, and Lake Havasu High School Owning Your Future Day. And last Friday, the city officially commemorated the opening of Site 6 with a ribbon cutting and dedication of our new launch ramp. Representatives Leo Biasucci attended and said a few words. Mayor read a proclamation, and several members of the Parks Board, city staff, city council, and the public showed up for the occasion. The new longer and less steep public launch ramp was a project made possible through the support of Arizona State Senator Sonny Borelli and Representatives Leo Biasucci and John Gillette, and numerous and generous grants, including the State Lake Improvement Fund. We hope our residents and visitors continue to enjoy this new and free and much safer public launch ramp for many, many years to come. Lake Havasu City Fire Department recently held a badge pinning ceremony for promoted employees and firefighters that passed their probationary period. Congratulations to Captains John Irula and Scott Jump, Engineer Sean Crampton, and firefighter paramedics Spencer Gunn, RJ Payne, Brandon Quinn, Brian Simmons, and Cameron Witt. At the beginning of the ceremony, Mayor Sheehy proclaimed the month of May as National Mental Health Awareness Month in honor of mental health care provider Candace Silvestri for her dedicated service to public safety personnel and their families over the last several years. Since opening our new council chambers where we sit here today, or this evening, we've hosted many city-related business meetings, including our Tri-City Council meeting. We had a coffee with the mayor and city manager. We've held that twice. We had the Havasu-Opoly presentation for our council candidates. We had our benefits trust meeting just last week, and we also had a donuts with the mayor and city manager that we hosted with Starline sixth graders. The photos on display for the most recent graduation held here in the council chambers with 4 graduates from our Veterans Treatment Court. During the ceremony, the Elks Veterans Committee presented the Flag of Valor prior to the graduates receiving their certificates and coins. The flag was handmade by a combat veteran and is proudly displayed in our court lobby downstairs. And also, I'd have to mention again for Judge Kalali, it was they did have their softball game where Lake Havasu City beat Kingman 14-5. And Judge Singer had to call mercy. Councilmember David Lane, you attended MCC's recognition ceremony and presented certificates from the mayor's office to 2 deserving All Arizona academic team members, Kevin Gotham and Ashley Teodisio. Both students will receive full tuition scholarships to any public university in Arizona following graduation from MCC. After graduating from MCC, Kevin plans to earn his bachelor's degree in cybersecurity or computer science from ASU. And Ashley is transferring to Northern Arizona University to earn her bachelor's of science in elementary education. Congratulations to both of you. And last Friday, Mayor and Council and City staff attended Starline School Kid City event. Every year, Starline's 4th, 5th, and 6th graders run a mini city that includes a city council, a city staff, there's a bank, a post office, and many businesses where customers can use special currency to purchase goods. Mayor Sheehy and Mayor Kinsley of Starline proclaimed the day and exchanged city keys to kick off the event. Parks and Recreation has you covered this summer with many upcoming programs for your kids and teens. Registration begins next week on May 21st, starting at 8 a.m., so don't miss out. That's next week. A Kids Summer Arts and Crafts Series in cooperation with the Kiwanis Club of Lake Havasu City is being offered beginning on July 10th, and that'll go through July 24th. We have our annual Sunshine Kids Camp for 1st through 6th grade. It'll be held at Havasupai and Oro Grande schools this year. It'll take place from June 3rd to July 19th. During this summer camp, the kids will participate in a variety of activities, including the gym, the crafts, field trips, and much, much more. And there's also a youth adventure camp being offered for older kids ages 9 through 14 in 3 different sessions from June 10th through June 26th. They'll learn the basics of and experience the fun of kayaking, snorkeling, and stand-up paddleboarding. And lastly, the community is invited to join the VFW Post 9401 at Wheeler Park on Memorial Day to honor those that have sacrificed their lives while serving in the U.S. military to protect our freedoms. The VFW has asked that everyone that wants to attend to please bring your own chairs and your own water. And with that, Mayor and Council, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Knudsen. All right, we'll move on to, again, back to our public hearings. Item 7.3 is the Lake Havasu City Second Bridge Feasibility Study Update. Good evening, Mr. Foggin.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilors. It is a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Tonight, we are ready to present a feasibility study. Basically, we've been working on feasibility for the second bridge now for a number of months. And our team from Michael Baker International is here to walk you through what they've been able to determine as far as pricing for different options. They will walk you through some bridge designs as well as some road alignments. And so tonight from Michael Baker International, we have Tony Cabrera, we have Kevin Kugler, and we also have virtually Tom Ritz, who will also be participating in the presentation. And with that, I will turn it over to Tony. Tony, yes.
Thank you, Ron. Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. We're excited to be here to get to this next step, right? The presentation of, as Ron mentioned, where we're at this point in time with the feasibility study. So we're going to have Kevin Kugler be the main presenter. And then joining us, as Ron mentioned, virtually is Tom Ritz from our team to present the bridge alternatives and pricing as well. But just real briefly, I'd like to call out two additional team members in the audience here with Kevin Murphy and Jill Himes. They're instrumental in being part of that team as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Kugler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us back. Appreciate it. And we're excited about the opportunity to be here to present the alternatives, as Tony mentioned, both on a series of roadway alternatives and a series of bridge type alternatives for your consideration and information this evening. Now, this presentation is designed to be a balance of being thorough because there's a lot of information, but we're going to be succinct at the same time. So at the end, the conclusion of the presentation, obviously, if you have any questions or comments, we're all ears and glad to entertain that. So I'm going to handle the balance of the presentation, and when we get to the bridge type alternatives, Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to Tom, who's here virtually to present that. So this is the agenda for this evening. I'll give you a quick recap on the public engagement that's happened to date. We've talked about, and it's good to see some familiar faces in the audience. Many of you heard about we're going to be doing some traffic modeling to determine in the rationale behind a 3-lane versus a 5-lane roadway and bridge facility. We're going to talk about the extensive coordination we've been doing with our friends at the Arizona State Parks Department. Even again, as early as this morning, we're on a meeting with them. The meat and potatoes of the presentation is the roadway and bridge type alternative review, and we'll talk briefly about next steps and then have some council discussion if you're so inclined. Public and stakeholder engagement summary, just briefly to recap, and again, great to see familiar faces. We had a very well-attended public open house meeting on January 29th. Hard to believe it was already that long ago. We had about 120 people, robust attendance, I would say, at that meeting, which also included public comment and survey cards, of which we received 337 responses in that survey, which was tremendous, great in showing of input and responses. And in my humble opinion, I would say the vast majority of those comments that we received were generally supportive and positive about the project in many different aspects. We followed up that public open house meeting in January on March 5th with 2 stakeholder meetings that were held on March 5th at 1 o'clock and 5:30. We had about 25 or so attend the first meeting, 13 to 16-ish on the second meeting. Coordinated with their staff to deliver letter invitations to about 423 property owners that live in proximity to our study area. Real quickly on traffic modeling, I definitely don't want to put you to sleep on a topic such as traffic modeling, but I think some of the key takeaways here is that we mentioned to the public, and we wanted to confirm, obviously, ourselves, working with our sub-consultants who worked on the regional transportation plan here for the MPO, to do some modeling to look at both current and future year conditions at 2030 and 2045. and to, like I said, to compare the analysis of can we get away with a 3-lane facility, especially from a budgetary impact, or do we need a 5-lane facility? And as the slide suggests, Mayor and Council, the results came back that a 3-lane facility offers sufficient vehicular capacity and level of service, at least for the next 20 years or so, through 2045, okay, which is a typical horizon look ahead for a study like this. A couple other notable observations there. McCulloch Boulevard and the existing London Bridge is expected to have over 20,000 average vehicles per day by the year 2045, which does exceed the existing roadway capacity of McCulloch in that particular location. The third bullet point there, the second bridge or the new roadway, is expected to have approximately just 10,800 average trips a day by 2045. And we'll talk a little bit about this notion of a Florida T intersection for some alternatives that contemplate connection to State Route 95. It's a little bit of a unique traffic signal type of configuration that allows for northbound operations. A lot of information on this slide, and my intent is not to bore you to tears with this. It's only to point out the fact that in this traffic modeling exercise, we didn't do it in a vacuum. We didn't just look at London Bridge Road and McCulloch. No, we looked at a wide variety of roads and intersections to evaluate the operations capacity and performance of those roadways as well. I'm glad to take any questions that you may have on that particular data set there. ASP, Arizona State Parks Department, they are instrumental in this process. As you know, Mayor and Council and most of the public, there's a memorandum of understanding, MOU, that describes and illustrates a 200-foot future right-of-way condition that's suitable for design of this new roadway, basically on their eastern flank of their property on the Windsor Beach side. We've had slide says 3 meetings, but we held a 4th meeting with them this morning to discuss their considerations into the process as a value partner in this process. And I think it's fair to say Mr. Roddy and his great staff have talked about their primary considerations that they wanted us to be aware of is that the new roadway design should accommodate a new formal entrance into the state park, preferably at a spot to align with the northern edge of their current parking lot on their property. Preferably, there's going to be some ebb and flow to that, but and their second priority for us was that all of those roadway alternatives that we're presenting to you here very shortly, they stay within that 200-foot right-of-way. This slide ought to look familiar. It's just a transition slide to remind everybody as part of the kind of the planning and engineering exercise here, there's 3 components to this study. Kind of the northern portion is a potential connectivity to State Route 95, although it's not essential for that, but we evaluated at Palo Verde, Willow Wash, and Paseo del Sol. The middle portion is kind of that transition area of going from the state park property to London Bridge Road, and then, of course, the bridge itself, and then the roadway on the island side of the property as it connects to McCulloch Boulevard. So just to orientate you a little bit, this is the proposed roadway cross-section we're looking at. So in the next few slides, when we show plan view graphics or the bird's eye view of these different alternatives, please think of this, what the roadway looks like in your mind. And that, as the slide obviously indicates, we have a 14-foot, which is a very generously sized mixed-use path on which would be the west side of the roadway. It's on your left, so it's the west side, to provide connectivity and continuity between the state park across the bridge down to McCulloch, and then a transition piece to tie into the excellent multi-use trail that's already on the island. 2 generously sized bike lanes, so 1 on each side, 2 12-foot travel lanes with a center turn lane or a median, depending on application and location. And then on the right side or east side of the roadway, a 6-foot sidewalk with a 4-foot buffer between that, detached from the roadway, which could be landscaped should you so desire. Same idea for the bridge, just real quickly. Of course, it's a bridge. It has to look a little different with barriers and such. The bike lanes go away from the pavement section itself. You have barriers then separating the pedestrian walk on the east side versus the multi-use path on the west side. Okay, but essentially from a vehicular capacity and operation standpoint, same as the roadway itself. So, transitioning to the roadway alignment alternatives, we have a series of 5 alternatives, 4 of which have an A and a B option. The A options that you'll see on all these assume a traffic signal at key intersection locations. The B version of these have a roundabout version as opposed to a traffic signal. Okay, so you can see some of the pros and cons. I'm not going to go through each of those. I don't want to bore you to tears, but this information is, of course, in your packet and available for public consumption. But let me take just about 30 seconds and orientate you to a few items on the graphic itself, since they replicate themselves on all the alternatives. The right-of-way line, or that 200-foot swath I was referring to, particularly on the state property, state park property, is shown in that purplish magenta dash line. That's the 200-foot right-of-way. The roadway itself, obviously, is in gray. A couple other things I want to point out, because I know not everybody looks at roadways and like I do and our friends do every day, but the blue line there that says limits of fill is an important distinction I want to call out, that as you can appreciate, we're going to be going or have a roadway that's at grade, and then we're going to transition to the elevation needed for a bridge to get over the channel, right? So when you see limits of fill, think of the fill is fill dirt. So that's the area where that you can appreciate where the roadway is going to start to elevate to transition for the bridge itself, okay? That's limits of fill in blue. Yellow is where there's going to be retaining walls to maintain that raised elevated condition of the roadway within the right-of-way prism itself. And I think those are the main things I wanted to point out. So that applies to each of the slides we're going to look at here in the next few slides, okay? So I wanted to orientate you with that. Alternative 1A itself, it's the least impact on existing Lake Havasu roadways. It ties in through the park's property, transitions through the city's parking lot, currently city-owned parking lot properties, to London Bridge Road. It provides for the access to the state park at the state park's preferred location at the northern edge of its parking lot. And this does contemplate traffic signals, new signals, I should say, at London Bridge Road and the new roadway connection, and then on the south end at McCulloch as well. Alternative 1B, Mayor and Council, same geometric configurations. Again, it's just with instead of the traffic signals, it's with the option of roundabouts on the north end and the south end, okay? I should point out, I was remiss in not pointing out quickly on options 1A and 1B, it does contemplate connection to State Route 95 at Palo Verde, which of course is just off the north edge of the slide. So, but that is where the current is, as you obviously know, a signalized intersection. And in our discussions with ADOT, that is their preferred connection point, is Palo Verde, okay? It's not to say that others can't happen, but it's their preferred. Roadway alternative 2A and 2B, as you can see, provides a radius of the roadway that ties into State Route 95 just south of Willow Wash, and I want to emphasize that, stays to the south of Willow Wash, thereby avoiding some utility conflicts, overhead power line potential conflicts. But you can see the yellow lines I was referring to on the retaining walls, some lengthy retaining walls and expensive improvements with this particular option. And the introduction of the Florida T intersection to the connection of State Route 95, which does minimize interruptions to traffic by allowing northbound free flow movements and limited signal phasing for southbound and turning movements out of what would be this proposed intersection. The preliminary roadway cost on this one is 15 to 17 million. I wanted to point out that cost does not include the bridge. It's for roadways only. So real quickly, sorry, on the cost side, 1A was 11 to 13 million. 1B was 13 to 15 million. Again, underscoring the fact this is roadway only. 2A, 15 to 17 million on the roadway. 2B, same description and alternative as I just presented, but incorporating the roundabouts, which you can see actually adds cost to the overall budget. This is a $17 to $19 million estimate, again, on the roadway itself. 3A is the same alignment in terms of it's just being south of Willow Wash and its connection point, proposed connection point to State Route 95. However, you can kind of see the T alignment as it goes directly into the preferred location of the state park at that northern edge of the parking lot. It does have some operational challenges with a new signal proposed at London Bridge Road, and there would be another signal proposed, most likely, even though it's a 3-point intersection right at the entrance of the park there, okay? And from a cost standpoint, the preliminary roadway cost on this particular option is 15 to 17 million, again, exclusive of the bridge. 3B, same as 3A, no room for a roundabout in this particular on the north side at London Bridge Road, but we have the roundabout option at the south end on the island on the McCulloch connection. Otherwise, everything else is the same as the prior, except for the cost. This is 17 to 19 million preliminary cost estimate. Again, underscoring the fact that it does not include the bridge. Alternative 4A. This one gets a little pricier with respect to its the design and construction of a would-be tie-in to State Route 95. You can see with those yellow lines that are shown there, some very large retaining walls that actually you can see cross over the existing Willow Wash facility. So you're talking about some reinforcement of roadway, structural design to sit on top of a wash. So not the easiest to design, but doable. Provides for a little better geometric tie-in and more favorable for ADOT's connection on State Route 95. The long-term O&M challenges are a little bit on the more of a consideration on this one. There would be a signal at London Bridge Road. The preliminary roadway cost on this one, Mayor and Council, 17.5 to 19.5 million estimate for the roadway itself. 4B, again, the same as 4A, just adding the roundabout option on the south end, no physical space for a roundabout on the north end, which all these options that we present to you have very little impact to existing properties, very little, if any, right-of-way, which was acquisition needed, which was an important consideration by staff and ourselves as well. So I just wanted to highlight that fact as well. So option number 5, this one contemplates connection at Paseo del Sol. We mentioned to the public early on that was going to be a consideration, as well it should be. I'm not going to spend much time going through it because, as that big red X, just like on Family Feud, indicates, this one's a non-starter from the standpoint. It's highly unlikely that this option would be approved by ADOT from the standpoint of the proposed intersection of this option at Paseo del Sol, the intersection spacing between what would be here and Mesquite in particular, too close of spacing. So this one's a non-starter from that standpoint, and from the project team's vantage point, is very unlikely to move forward for favorable consideration, Mayor, Council. So hopefully I didn't talk too fast. I wanted to keep it thorough but succinct, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom Ritz, who's our senior bridge lead, to go over the bridge options, Mayor.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and council members. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. I'm going to run through a series of bridge alternatives as we've contemplated thus far for the feasibility study. Each one of these is going to look a little bit similar, where we've got a profile view at the top, a cross section in the lower left, and then some attributes with respect to pros and cons of each alternative, as I'll discuss as we work through these. But one thing that we do when we evaluate bridges, especially this early in the project, we're looking at alignment, of which Kevin alluded to. All the alignments over the Bridgewater Channel are the same. And so there's no difference in any of these alternatives I'm going to discuss in terms of alignment. Another thing we discussed is span configuration. You can see from this top view, hopefully you can read it, but all the span configurations of our alternatives are the same in that we've looked at a clear span of the Bridgewater Channel, 240 feet, and then end spans on each side that would provide for future amenities, retail, certainly the beach and other amenities as is going to be yet decided in the future, but yet something that is contemplated as a benefit to the project and to the community to have some shaded areas on each side and not just close in the bridge on each side of the channel. So this first bridge type I'm contemplating here, all of them have the same typical section as Kevin had described with the multi-use path of 14 feet, two through lanes, the continuous turn lane, and then a 6-foot bike lane on the other side. Excuse me. This first one is a very traditional concept, AASHTO precast concrete eye girders, as is visible in the lower left. All of these alternatives contemplate utility accommodations, as is necessary for the pump station and other utilities that are currently in the corridor and that need to be maintained. And so all these alternatives facilitate future utilities. This is a particular option that is very familiar to most of you. It's a very common AASHTO girder what you see commonly around Arizona, and it has a construction cost of $12 to $16 million. Next slide, please. This is more of a wide flange girder, now embellished with some enhancements for pedestrian railing. Not much cost has been added, only up to $16.5 million, but this is an efficient structure that doesn't require any false work in the channel. Neither did the first one I discussed, which is important to note because impacts to the channel operations for both boating activities and for the ferry is important to maintain. These first 4 to 5 options I'm going to discuss have no impacts in the channel because we can erect the bridge, construct the bridge without impacting the channel. And that's without false work or false work towers in the channel. Next slide. This is similar to the last one. However, note in the lower left, the typical section is now changed. These are what we call tub girders that would be spliced. These are a more aesthetic sort of finish for the underside of the bridge, and there's going to be a lot of activity under the bridge over the lifetime of its service life. These lend themselves to more architectural lighting and are a more aesthetic, just a more aesthetic structure type. This is adding just about the same amount of cost. We're at $16.5 million, somewhere between $13 and $16.5 million. Note the piers on type 3 before we go from that one. Those are straight piers. Now as we go to type 4, option 4, now we're looking at flared piers, and we're beginning to get more of an architectural remnants to the iconic London Bridge with more arch shapes both in the pedestrian railing and in the substructure itself. So flaring out the substructures, in addition to keeping that pedestrian railing that is arched and just giving a more personality to the bridge, if you will, and likeness to the London Bridge. One thing I should note that is common to all these alternatives as well is the clearance underneath the bridge. You can see that in the upper profile view. There's 100 feet by 35 feet. That is our current clearance envelope that we anticipate that is necessary to pass all activity on the river and in the channel. Although we are working with the tribe, who has been talking about a new ferry boat that may have a slightly greater clearance, and we'll certainly address that as necessary in final design. But that clearance envelope is something that we've targeted to have as a requirement of all these bridge alternatives. Number 5. This is another attempt at now looking at more shapes that are more arch in their geometry. These are variable depth superstructure tub girders that are deeper at the substructure pier source substructures. They increase in depth, thereby creating a little bit more of a flow in terms of an arch, a sort of shape, maintaining that same deck geometry and railing on the top. But we're getting into more cost now with variable depth tub girders at up to $18 million. Next slide. This option, along with the one I just described, requires some false work and some activity in the channel. So this and number 7 to follow are both arch alternatives, true arch alternatives. It's just the substructure that varies slightly between the two, but have a 240-foot span concrete structural arch supporting the superstructure and end spans that have spandrel columns in them. Now we're getting into a little bit more money, but a likeness much more of that of the London Bridge, but now up to $26 million. Next slide. This one is very similar. The superstructure is now box girders, still accommodating utilities. All of these are accommodating utilities, which are important to note and important to the project. but now a maximum cost of $28.5 million.
Thank you, Tom.
So Kevin and I are both going to discuss this, but it begs the question as to the cost of the roadway and the cost of the bridges, which are compatible within the contract constraints of the project budget. Kevin?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And we're turning the corner on the end of the presentation here, Mayor and Council. We think this graphic is pretty compelling in its illustration of kind of, at least from a budget standpoint, right? The title clearly says, what can we afford in that $35.5 million budget, which was our marching orders from day one, understandably so, of course. So what this chart tries to, as in its most simplistic form, tends to do, you can see there's a spectrum of, a pattern or a spectrum of opportunities that begin to present themselves. Let's start with the two expensive bridge types that Tom talked about, Bridge 6 and Bridge 7. In addition to the false work that he talked about, the price points on those two particular facilities begin to render themselves out of budgetary reach, okay? The bottom line there, number 5, as the asterisk notes on the bottom as well, that was the Paseo del Sol roadway option, which we think is a non-starter for its inability to connect and get permitted by ADOT to connect to State Route 95. So between that one being option 5 being eliminated from the roadway, you can see where the X's lie and the green check marks lie, where there's a spectrum of opportunities, of which the combination of affordable roadway along with bridges, and there's several to choose from. That's the great part of it here. So there's multiple opportunities to provide different roadway and bridge types as we move forward with the preparation of the feasibility study, which is a nice segue to the next steps. Our continued coordination with Arizona State Parks, they've been instrumental to the success of our study so far, and a lot of good collaboration and communication there with your staff and them. The draft feasibility study and the selection of the preferred alternative, we're providing the deliverable, if you will, the report itself to your staff at the very end of May. And then we'll move into that second phase of the public engagement. So we'll hold another public open house meeting early to mid, sometime in June, stakeholder meetings as well, shortly to follow those to roll out the study findings, Mayor. And then the final, we'll incorporate that input that we get back from stakeholders in the public, and we'll button up the feasibility study by the end of June. So that concludes our presentation. Myself, Tony, Tom, and or Jill or Kevin are here to answer any questions that you might have, Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. As you said, there's lots of options here and lots of opportunity here. I really appreciate the public involvement that has been involved in this process. And certainly the leadership from our delegation, without Representative Biasucci really fighting for the funding opportunity, along with Representative Gillette and Senator Burley, we wouldn't even be here having this discussion where we're actually going to come to fruition. So really exciting about that. When it comes to the cost estimates, are those all-in cost estimates, including construction documents and engineering services and construction management? All of that is the estimates there?
Short answer is yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor. Yes, it is.
Excellent. Yep. All right. Are questions and comments from members of the council? Yeah. Councilmember Lane?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know my chair keeps these new chairs moving on me. A question on the expected traffic count for that's expected by 2045. The traffic count for the current bridge that we have, is that if we don't build another bridge, or if we have two bridges, that's what they still expect the traffic count to be?
Great question, Mayor, Councilmember Lane. That's expected with the advent of the new roadway.
So even with the new roadway, we're going to be over capacity.
Well, you're going to have that traffic. So growth is going to dictate that level of operation. So you'll have that on London Bridge Road, McCulloch at London Bridge, you'll have that level of traffic. But the model suggests you're going to have that traffic on London Bridge Road. The new roadway and new bridge will also be able to accommodate over 10,000 trips as well.
So that'll take some of it off of there.
That's the point. Yes, absolutely. So I guess another way of saying, I didn't mention it in the presentation, but by virtue of the model showing, and keep in mind, because I know some people will question, traffic modeling is an art and a science. Those numbers are going to be higher at peak recreation weekends. Those are average daily trip numbers, and there's a whole explanation there. So there are a law of averages over the course of 24 hours, over 7 days. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole unless you want me to, but the notion that you'll have 20,000 trips on McCulloch is going to happen based on that current growth, what's in the land use and everything else. And it's going to be over capacity what that 3-lane roadway can handle. So by virtue of that fact, kind of demonstrates the fact that there's a need and purpose for another facility.
And then on the clearances for the channel, that's at the high water mark, correct?
Yes.
So you got the high water mark and then the bottom of the bridge.
Yeah, the 450 and the 455. Yep, we've been talking with Jill about that. Again, we're at the feasibility study stage, so we have an understanding of that. As we get to final design on the engineering side, that level of specificity will be dialed in for sure.
And during construction, is that going to be reduced because of construction equipment, girders that are holding the new pieces up there and all that? Like when you see them build a bridge now, there's false work that's underneath what they're working on. So during construction, is there going to be false work that is going to reduce that during construction?
Reduce the
height.
height. Oh, of the bridge itself? Or
The bridge
water
itself.
level? I just
So
didn't know if you were
you
referring
have
to
the water level and then you have the bridge, but then when you're building it, you have false work. Is that going to be
Yeah.
reduced quite a bit to where the current boats that go through there can't get through? Is what I'm
Kevin, if I may.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Tom. Rescue me on this
Yeah,
one.
absolutely. Alternatives 1 through 4 would not have any reduced overhead clearance because those would be drop-in spliced segments that would not have any false work. It's only alternatives 5, 6, and 7 that have some variability of false work that would reduce that clearance height temporarily.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lang.
I don't know if you wanted me to go into what options I prefer, or you want to wait
Let's
until
get
after we
feedback
hear
and
from
then
the
we can
public.
come back and
Thank you.
circle there. Yeah, Vice Mayor Moses.
Thank you. I'd like to go over the roadway alignments alternatives. Just had a couple questions, and was hoping we could bring it up on the picture. We have that ability, Steve. We'll start with alternative 1A. Just because it's here and I'm looking at it, so I love that you're including the multi-use path that we can connect to the island and all that. Would we have the ability to also connect that multi-use path to the Bridgewater Channel, our kind of boardwalk down there?
Great question, Mayor and Vice Mayor Moses. The short answer will be yes. And we've talked with staff and as part of the project team from the inception of this feasibility study that any design that we come up with will allow for or encourage the ability to provide that connectivity. However, from a construction and cost budget standpoint, it would be a standalone or separate project from the roadway and the bridge proper.
Okay, thank you.
But the design will be as such to accommodate connection there too.
Wonderful. And just actually a brief, none of these are going to require eminent domain, use of that or purchasing any other property. We have the right-of-way secured on all of these options.
Right-of-way is sufficient. London Bridge, particularly on 1A right here, the short answer is yes. When you get into final design, there may be small incursions of limited, a foot here and there. But the intent of every single alternative that you see here is that London Bridge Road is at 70-foot of right-of-way. So this roadway would transition very nicely to London Bridge Road. No additional accommodations needed there. And a couple of the other, since you asked that question just real briefly, like say, for instance, these options, they cross over those existing public utility tracks that you're probably familiar with that are common parking areas, parking in common. So that's not private property, but they do contemplate usage of that space.
All right, thank you. Can we go back to 1A? And I know these are kind of lines over a real map, you know what I mean? But how does Paseo del Sol just kind of dead end into the new London Bridge Road as it curves around? Like that to me seems funky. Is it not funky?
Funky's probably a good term, Vice Mayor. That is you're on to one of the challenges of this particular alternative is the geometric of that tie-in and how Paseo del Sol would connect to. There's a couple options that we've contemplated. One of which, if the desire is to maintain the connection of that road, which we assume is the case, that it could be a right in, right out option. Perhaps not. It might be limited in a full turning movement option because of its proximity to what will then be the signalized intersection and the funkiness, as you say, of the
Yeah.
of the curve of the road. But that would be explored and determined in the final design, kind of beyond the feasibility study stage.
Alrighty. Can we go to 1B? No, I'm sorry. We're probably going to go to 2. 1B is just roundabouts, right? Well, actually, let's talk about roundabouts. Do you have experience with people towing big boats going through roundabouts?
Yes, I hear that. Yes, the short answer is yes. Tony and Russ have both designed roundabouts at different parts of the state. Yes.
And they don't have issues with them?
Didn't say that. I said we had experience with them. These roundabouts are designed, at least in a turning movement, for what they, in transportation terms, is called a WB50, which is essentially the length of a commercial semi-truck in terms of the radius and its ability. So testing the turning movement on a map is one thing, in engineering terms, but the practical application in a community where we're not dealing with commercial driver licenses, get people that drive trucks for a living, have to earn those licenses. Up here, it's going to be the weekend warrior, if I may suggest, with the recreational vehicles. So we're not advocating roundabouts one way or the other. Some communities love them and embrace them, some don't. And there's often divisiveness within the community. I've lived and breathed these a few times. So they are here as an option to present. There's an education piece, as I know we've talked about with some of you before, and it's subjective, but there are proven studies out there that prove the fact that they are operationally more efficient, they're safer, and to the extent when there are crashes, those crashes have less injury severity. Okay. So again, but it's the community's preference.
Thank you.
So we're not advocating one or the other.
Is it okay if I keep going?
Please.
Yeah. Can we go to 2A? So my question here, there's another street that kind of goes right there. It's almost similar. It's called Veterans Way.
Yes.
And you're building a wall through our Veterans Way. Am I reading that right?
It could be. There's a couple opportunities there. Veterans Way could be elevated to connect to the roadway itself to add additional costs. Right. Not ideal.
All those buildings right there, those are all storefront facing Veterans Way. That's how you are entered into it. So I'm no engineer, but it looked like an oversight of this being a feasible option of having that because it's high. The difference between where Paseo del Sol starts and where it would have to end on the highway is, I'm going to guess 20 feet maybe.
Yeah, 20 to 24, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So unless we're building another bridge, you know what I mean?
I know absolutely what you mean, and take it for what it's an alternative.
Okay.
Right. So it's an alternative that we told the public. I'm not suggesting.
That's great. I just when I'm making my decision, I just want to make sure I'm.
Oh, it's good to know.
You're
appreciate
presenting
the
right.
feedback.
I'm not saying anything about what you guys are presenting. I just want to be sure I'm reading it right.
You're reading it correctly and spot on. I appreciate the comment. Like any alternative, they got pros and cons, and you've touched on one that's a challenge with that particular option.
Okay. Well, then it kind of, I don't think I need to go over any of the other alternatives on that. So if anybody else wants to talk about, I'll open it up and we can talk bridges later, maybe.
Perfect. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, well, let's then talk about bridges and options. If we don't have any other questions or comments, are there any ones that stand out for members of council of kind of what you were eyeing as best options? Certainly, we have next steps, so we're going in front of the public. I mean, so this is very rough, but we'll just give idea and feedback from a council perspective, and then it'll go back in front of the public at another open house, and then it'll have stakeholder meetings, and then we'll come back for final. But Councilmember Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll start. So if we could move this slide so that the public can see bridge type number 4. There you go. So when I look at this and looking at the cost estimates for the bridge, looking at the cost estimates for the roadway that I was looking at, to me, this looks more closer to what we currently have with our existing bridge with the arches. Of course, they're not identical, but there are arches there, and the way the piers have somewhat of an arch. So in my opinion, this is, out of the options that we've seen, the best construction and the closest that you've come up with that matches what we currently have aesthetically. And if this was, money was no object, I think it'd be great to build a replica of the Tower Bridge. But, I think for the money we have and where we're at, this is the one that matches the best. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Moses?
Yeah, can I ask another question?
Sure.
So I had heard, and this may be something city manager has to chime in on too, that we had, old relics, old pieces of the old bridge that we could somehow incorporate into. Is that still stuff we're talking about? Is that something we can look at because I heard a lot of good feedback that people in the public absolutely loved that idea, being able to incorporate some design aspects of it. Is that something we would talk about when we actually get the guy who's going to build it on the line?
Sure. Mayor, Vice Mayor Moses, yeah, certainly. So we kind of alluded to it a little bit as well. This is a big picture, high vision look at location, road network, feel, general look of the bridge itself, right? So we've done a really good job with our consultants and holding our hands through this process and collecting that feedback. But it's good to have these conversations, but we'll have to kind of hit pause on them. We do have a lot of granite from the London Bridge that we could utilize during the construction of a second bridge. We're on the city staff is on the cusp of putting the solicitation out to for architect and consequently a general contractor and construction team that's really going to get into the nitty gritty details of what the cost, the look, and all the things tied to it, and so forth. But you're right. I'm hearing from a lot of people that utilizing some of the granite with the London Bridge in a way that makes it match, but still holds everything true with regards to the historic nature of the London Bridge.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess I'll just weigh in too. I think the roadway alignments, I think we're looking at 1A as far as if it were my vote, has the least impact on the business community over there, which is, a pretty important community. And then that tied in with either bridge type 4 or 5 would hopefully leave us room in the budget to expand on that multi-use path and create some more usable space underneath the bridge. That would be my suggestion, my vote for direction.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Any other thoughts about what was presented as far as options from members of council? Councilmember Campbell?
Mayor, I just wanted to ask the designer a question. Could we use that granite potentially for the walking paths and the bike paths? I know we're going to go to, I just wanted to know, is that even feasible?
Mayor and Councilmember Campbell, meaning the mixed use path?
Yeah, on the bridge portion.
Oh, on the bridge portion.
Yeah.
Have to give that some more thought. I want to say yes from a design and aesthetic standpoint, believe me. But from a functionality and usability standpoint, we would have to look at the material and see how it.
That was my concerns exactly. I just didn't know if you had a hard yes or a hard no on that, because I don't really know which way to go, but I think it would be beautiful if it actually worked. Thank you much.
Sure, if I could add as well. Tom may chime in.
Yeah, Tony, if you can get to the mic, thank you.
You betcha. Sorry about that. Tom might chime in as well, but when you add that kind of weight onto the bridge, now you have to increase your structural elements and thus potentially increasing cost. So the efficiency is there.
Well, there was the hard no that I was expecting. Okay, thank you.
But at the same time, we have to blend that we still would have to definitely look at it if that's an approach that the community decides to entertain.
Okay, well, that'll come down the line, I guess. Thank you.
Any additional feedback from members of council before we open the public hearing? Councilmember Dolan?
Mr. Mayor, so we can do like a nice granite something before you enter the bridge. Keep it off the bridge for weight. So, I'm kind of on the same. I'm kind of leaning towards 1A. I like not a big fan of the roundabout. I like roundabouts in places where people are very familiar with them and use them every single day. Where people are not, they're not as useful. And I think Havasu with the boatings, the boats and trailers. So yeah, I definitely would leave out the roundabouts from the future ones. Like I said, I kind of lean towards 1A. I get a little nervous. I'd love to see it where it would be tied to the highway, but it sounds like we're trying to force it to tie to the highway. But like I said, I'd be kind of curious to see what they come up with as far as design with that Florida intersection. But yeah, so I'd probably be leaning at the moment towards 1A, and with the bridge, probably 4 or 5. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, we talked about Florida intersections or Florida T, but we didn't ever say what they are. Could you maybe describe that for the listeners and even for my benefit?
Sure, absolutely. Mayor and Council. Let me. 2A, is that what you said, Jess? You can zoom in. If you have it on your computer, you can zoom in on it and really see it. But it's effectively, Mayor and Council, an operation where the 2 northbound lanes on State Route 95, this Florida T allows for continuous through access. So northbound traffic is not stopped or impeded. Now, southbound traffic is then impeded. Southbound 95 traffic is impeded when there is a need for egress out of this on this alternative, going east to north and east to south. So south traffic stops, north traffic keeps going, and you can see in one, it's hard to see, I recognize, but if you're turning left, so if you're on this roadway to go northbound on the State Route 95, there is a lengthy tapering merge lane that brings them to then merge with those 2 through lanes on State Route 95. So from a signal timing and operations phasing standpoint, much more conducive, because we all know the traffic's heavy already, right? Roadway segments are already challenged at level of service. Your intersections in and around the area are already challenged at the level of service. So recognizing that in our preliminary discussions with ADOT, while you have to demonstrate to ADOT that this can be warranted, and they caution that, they've shown some preliminary favoritism towards this as well, per our recommendation. So it's something we're exploring, and again, would be refined in the design stage. Should we go with an option that contemplates the Florida T?
Mayor?
Yeah. Mr. Knudsen?
Can you talk a little bit about the fact that why are we talking about a Florida T intersection rather than a signal, right? So ADOT's got standards and for locations of signals and proximity from other signals. Why can't we put a signal up, Kevin?
We could, but the simple answer is that ADOT it would show more favoritism towards the Florida T because of the continuous operations, just for the northbound in particular. So it allows for more through movements, and the overall performance is enhanced with the Florida T. Now, I think what you're possibly referring to too is the spacing. So that's, I think, what Jess was referring to. ADOT has definite minimum spacing requirements. So while this option, Councilmember Moses, isn't favorable, I understand from different standpoints, it does meet the minimum spacing requirements that ADOT require to pull it north away from Mesquite in particular. So equidistant from Palo Verde and Mesquite, this alignment has some challenges, but on the ADOT side of the ledger, it checks that box, if you will. Some of the others don't check that box, either less favorably or at all. ADOT's preferred connection point is the existing intersection at Palo Verde. And some enhancements would need to be done to that intersection naturally.
All right. Yeah, Councilmember Campbell?
One other visualization that I see on this, if you go with roadway A, first, everybody likes the dollar amount, that's good. But it seems as if, because it goes to London Bridge Road has several intersections coming into Lake Havasu City. There's many places that you can jaunt onto London Bridge Road, maybe slow yourself down and connect here if that's the direction you're going. The farther back you are, let's say you're coming off the 40 with your boat, is what I'm assuming, or maybe you don't have a boat. But if you then, by the shops of Havasu, got onto London Bridge Road, it would eliminate a lot of the traffic that's already on the highway that we have and encourage people maybe to just slow down and go that way. And again, we have, I think, some restaurants in that area, some gas stations in that area that you can slow down on London Bridge Road and connect to this quite easily, as far as I'm concerned. That's what I see, but I'm not ADOT.
And Councilmember Campbell, agreed. Yeah, good observation.
Any additional feedback before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? If so, just make your way to the podium. Yeah, please just make your way to the podium, state your name for the record, and share your comments.
Would you like me to keep the slide on this one?
If you keep the slide and probably stay close, because you might need to answer some of the comments. So, yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm a little bit confused. You got two roads that's going into one that goes on the island. Is that correct? Two roads go into one?
Lanes or?
Well, you have two bridges. New bridge, the old bridge, then in the bottom corner, it goes into one.
Oh, so yeah, I think, Mr. Wisdom, what you're talking about and referring to is if you look at the upper part of this slide, that's up by the Hampton Inn, if you will. And then at the lower part of the slide, that's where it connects to Beachcomber and to McCulloch on the island, making a full loop. Yeah, Mr. Wisdom, just get to the microphone just so folks at home.
Another thought I had is on the island, if we had one-way traffic all the way around, in other words, you can only go one way on the road and you go all the way around, I think that would eliminate a lot of problems of congestion by London, the old bridge. It's a problem. It's a bigger problem than we originally thought, I think. Thought it'd be a piece of cake. Cake turned to mud. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wisdom.
My name is Gary Myers. I've been living here for about 25 years. You may remember that I was the original chairman of the Freedom Bridge Project when we started this whole second bridge reenactment idea back in 2007. And I've got a number of questions that maybe the gentleman here can answer. You did mention ADOT at Palo Verde. ADOT prefers the Palo Verde intersection. I'd like to hear more about how that would tie into London Bridge Road and what intersection there, because there have been some improvements in that intersection recently. Our committee met in 2007 with Arizona State Lands, which still owns a good portion of the island, and they were very excited about the next bridge, and that next bridge would probably enhance their values considerably. And that would also incentivize them to sell some of that property, which ends up going into the educational trust for the state of Arizona. Given that there's a financial benefit to Arizona State Lands, and there might be some financial restrictions on what choice is eventually made on this bridge, I would suggest opening up some conversations with Arizona State Lands and see whether or not they might want to add to the funds that Representative Biasucci already obtained, because if they add to the funds to get a better bridge that enhances their property, that would be in a mutually beneficial situation, and it might not restrict us to a certain choice based on funding. So there might be some funding choices by working with Arizona State Lands, and I would strongly encourage opening up some conversations and see whether that's worth pursuing. In addition, back in 2007, before the Freedom Bridge project got started, we actually made some effort in contacting large corporations to see whether they'd be interested in naming rights and how much they would be willing to pay. Nationwide, municipalities, stadiums, roads, bridges have corporate names, and those corporations pay many millions of dollars each year to maintain those naming rights. Having a second bridge that's really going to be preserving the famous London Bridge would be something worth pursuing as far as a naming right. And we contacted Coca-Cola, which at the time was in the process of trying to acquire Arizona Iced Tea Company, and they thought naming the second bridge as the Arizona Iced Tea Bridge would be something they would be willing to pay for. We contacted Cisco Corporation, which has as their corporate logo a bridge, and they expressed some interest. And we also contacted Marriott Corp because they were at the time interested in looking at some property on the island and developing for a big resort, which is where Crazy Horse currently is. Their lease was coming due in a few years at that time. So given all these corporate interests, They ended up getting set aside when one of the city council members approached our committee, our second bridge committee, which, by the way, John Parrott, who's sitting back there, was on that original committee, and said that, hey, why don't you consider a Veterans Memorial Bridge? And that's what led to the renaming of our second bridge committee to the Freedom Bridge Project. And then we ended up with hundreds of local volunteers raising funds. We created the Havasu Memorial Walkway, originally called the Freedom Bridge Memorial Walkway. And we started raising funds designed to enhance, to be able to step up the total amount of money that would be spent on the bridge so we could possibly go to a higher, a better, more expensive design that would also enhance the visitor attraction of the London Bridge. So we had all these things work in progress, and I think a lot of these ideas need to be pursued, reignited, and I'd be willing to dedicate some additional time. I personally spent about 3,000 hours working on the project back in 2007 through 2010. We collected a lot of data, including the traffic studies and all the other things that have been redone again now. But I'd be willing to help out if the committee needs, if the city council deems fit, in pursuing some of these ideas, because I think being restricted, being handcuffed by an amount of money, that amount of money might not be the handcuffing, might not be the restrictions that you actually perceive. We may actually be able to find new ways to generate additional funding for this project. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Myers, and thank you for your work on this item. We have been engaged with Arizona State Trust Lands and will continue to be, and we can potentially explore some of those other items as well.
I'm Robert Fisher. I like the idea of the Veterans Memorial Bridge. I like traffic circles, but in general, most of them that I've come across in America are too small in diameter and don't really offer the smooth flow of traffic that a larger diameter one is. So it might be a consideration. Somebody mentioned boats with trailers, et cetera. And that would be a big consideration if the diameter of them was large enough to accommodate all that. And one little nit that I don't think anybody's considered is, how are you going to keep those swallows from making nests on the bottom of that bridge? Is there something you can do in the original design to make sure that they don't get in there and clobber the place with these mud nests? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Donna McCoy. I just want to say, please, 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 no circles. Every place I've been, people don't know how to drive them. If you're used to them and you know them, they're great. But you figure you watch going down the highway now, somebody towing a fifth wheel, towing a boat, they can't stay in their own lane now. So imagine trying to maneuver the circle with who's going next, yielding, and so forth. So please, no traffic circles.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, or good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Dan Roddy. I'm the Western Region Manager for the Arizona State Parks and Trails. I'd like to start by thanking yourselves and all the city staff that has worked so diligently on this project, as well as the folks from Michael Baker International. It really has been refreshing to work continuously with a group of people that are open-minded, conversational, and willing to listen to all the various opinions. We appreciate that, and we appreciate the presentation they made today. I'd like to point out that the memorandum of understanding that exists between Arizona State Parks and Trails and Lake Havasu City is an example of our continued partnership. We very much value the partnership. We continue to invest strongly in our presence here in Lake Havasu City, and we believe it's one of the most important elements of our mission, and we wouldn't want it any other way. That being said, the memorandum of understanding that we have in place has very clearly stated that anything that takes place will be with a minimal impact to Lake Havasu State Park. Nothing that I've seen to this point minimizes the impact to Lake Havasu State Park. It does not mean that it won't, but I'd like to make that very clear. We have a lot of questions. We greatly appreciate the process to this point, and I think it's something that we would like to continue to converse about. We're looking forward to that, and I'll just leave you with this question. All the budget figures that we've looked at so far, all the feasibility programs, all have price tags to them. Is the work needed to make the park whole included in that? They say park access provided, preferred park access provided. Well, as we all know in the construction industry, when my neighbor builds a house, is the neighbor only worried about what's on their side of the line, or are they going to make the neighborhood whole? And that's what I'm concerned about. And I appreciate your time to listen to that. Be happy to answer any questions if anybody has them.
Thank you, Mr. Roddy, and thank you for your partnership. It's definitely felt in our community. Great questions. Is that taken into account with the budget figures to make the park whole, whatever we may disturb, or depending on the alignments, is that in the budget figures that we're seeing?
Mayor and council members, it depends on the alternative that we're looking at. So the budget figures that are brought forward with each of the alternatives represent costs explored within the 200-foot swath, the right-of-way swath. So those aspects are covered. Now, it depends which alternative is chosen that would determine the breadth and depth of impacts to the state park, but anything outside of the 200-foot is not included within the cost estimate.
Excellent. But conversations are still happening, so
yes,
and we'll make sure that we hear everybody out. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
My name is John Parrott, and I've been involved with this a long time, I guess. One thing in the early days, when we were thinking about this, we talked about restricting the type of traffic on the London Bridge. Maybe nothing more than 3/4 of a ton, no trailer, no commercial traffic. And if you were going to do any restrictions like that, you would certainly need to make sure that the roadway and the bridgeway were wide enough to handle that. And I think that's certainly something to be discussed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great point. That's been taken into consideration. Please, yes.
Mayor and council, short answer is yes, that's been accommodated. If you remember the cross section, I can go back if you like, but if you recall, they were 12-foot travel lanes. 12-foot travel lane is a generously sized travel lane to accommodate the largest of vehicles, city buses, fire apparatus, etc. Many urban cities are taking their lanes down to 11 and 10 foot and are still operating successfully. So 12 foot is considered generous.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kelly's Bonnie Toy. I'm still short. I had a couple of questions in regards to the feasibility study. One, when the study was introduced online and asked for feedback online, the study was not for just Lake Havasu citizens, but it incorporated anybody who accessed it from anywhere in the world. And was that when you talk about the the good reports that were answered, was any of that differentiated between Havasu citizens and non-Lake Havasu citizens? Another issue is when you keep another question I have is talking about the expected traffic. I don't understand where the numbers are coming from going from 10,000 to 20,000 on just the London Bridge. And as a pedestrian and a driver who happens to walk over the bridge often enough, I've recognized that some of the traffic congestion issue on the bridge is a result of the crosswalks that are on the bridge. So you have one crosswalk, you have a giant boat trying to go across the bridge, and somebody pushes the button to stop all the traffic. And the giant boats have to stop and wait for the pedestrians to cross. And then because the boats are big, they back up onto Lake Havasu Avenue. And then because those boats are big, they back up onto Mesquite Avenue. And then those big boats are backed up onto the highway. And it really has nothing to do with the bridge itself. And it has a lot more to do with the pedestrians crossing the crosswalks. And I was just wondering if any of that was taken into consideration during the feasibility study. Also, the Havasu Riviera opened up, and oh my gosh, last Memorial Day, there was less traffic congestion on the bridge because of the beautiful Havasu Riviera Marina that opened up. Was that taken into consideration on the feasibility study and the whole need for the Freedom Bridge? Those are my questions.
Yeah, lots to unpack right there. So I think there was as far as the data for traffic counts, as Mr. Kugler mentioned, it's an art and a science. So that they do a variety of different things to get that data. Really, what we're trying to identify with that data is a second bridge even necessary, which the data indicates yes. This is like a midterm report on feedback from citizens. So for us to differentiate between folks that live here that versus that don't, I believe the number was 447 comments is I think what I read on the screen. So we don't have that because it was done on a computer and some people could have replied twice. I mean, the comments I saw, I know some of the comments were replied by a few different people. But this is the first public engagement on this issue since all that data came together. Next steps in June, there'll be another public outreach, and then there will be 2 stakeholder meetings, and then we'll have the final piece. Some of the comments here when it comes to design and what the bridge is going to look like and how pedestrian traffic will be and what the lane configurations will be to ensure that other areas of the community don't back up will be taken into account during the next phase, which is the design and construction. So, afterwards, you and I can sit down and we can go through some more specific things, but overall, I believe that answers the comments and questions that you had mentioned.
And then the whole, as a regular citizen who's looking at the study and not comprehending it, my brain says, how come the bridge just doesn't go from one side of the island to the other side straight into Lake Havasu Avenue? Why does it have to go all the way up to, I don't understand the concept of it having to connect into the highway.
Well, currently, the majority of the configurations that have the green check mark are using London Bridge London Bridge Road to South Palo Verde. So that's what is the current, the majority of the options that are available within the funding that we have available.
But that's still London Bridge Road, not Highway 95. I don't understand why the Highway 95.
Yeah, like I said, I'll sit down with you afterwards and we'll go over all the specifics for you. All right, thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this item? Yeah, please just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
Murray, great job so far. I like the study, the way you've done it. There's a lot of options, right? You can do whatever you want to based upon the budget, which I think is a good thing, okay? I'm big into public safety. I have been for a long time, safety overall. It provides another opportunity to get out onto the island if the fire department needs to get there or the PD needs to get there, or if something were to happen on the existing bridge. It's a backup plan. It's a contingency. And I think it's a good way to go. You need to continue these programs that you're having today. I think it's great to get public involvement, and we need to make sure police and fire, obviously, are going to be pulled into it. So there may be some additional advantages, right? Put the bridge up, chief of police, fire chief, we can get apparatus out there, emergency vehicles quicker. So kudos to you as far as you've gotten today, and looking forward to some great stuff with this bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Would anyone else like to address the council on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for any final thoughts. This item is just for information, so it's a public engagement, update the council and the community on where we stand. As we know, our next steps are in June. We'll have the public outreach, and then we'll have 2 stakeholder meetings, and then we'll be able to wrap up the feasibility study portion of this.
Can I have one more follow-up question?
Vice Mayor Moses?
Mr. Wisdom had a great point. Can we go back to one of the roadway sections? It honestly doesn't matter.
The roadway cross section.
Yeah.
IT is going to have to help.
Go to 1A.
I need someone's help to get me
Yeah.
there.
I think he's working.
Oh, we're both doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
He taught me how to do it, and I'm like, oh man, I'm panicking now, but he's in control.
I'm hitting buttons, but nothing's happening.
Stop touching buttons, Cal.
Yeah.
Oops, wrong way.
Thank you for indulging this.
Of course. Is this for you?
No, keep going.
Oh,
1A.
Oh, I thought you
road
meant
section.
broad section. My
Just because we want to get all the traffic off, we want to get traffic off, right? And it backs up, goes up McCulloch. But now we're just kind of moving the choke point down the road a little bit with that light that's going to tee into the same area. What is there a way to make that a little bit better of a situation? What does that look like over there? I'm sorry.
What, the Palo Verde?
Sort of the bottom portion of the map.
Oh, okay.
Where
Island.
McCulloch dead ends into the new, is going to dead end into the new bridge road.
Yes.
We're creating a choke point. You know what I mean? We kind of, yes, you have two access points, but they're all meeting at the same point, 50 yards onto the island. 50 yards is an exaggeration, but we're not maximizing the benefits of having two egress onto the island if we have them meet right there. Is there another way to configure that? He mentioned, having one go around and one go the other way.
I know what you're saying.
Do we have the right of way for something like that?
Now you're onto it. Mayor, Council Member Moses, to refresh your recollection, the magenta dash line is the existing right of way that represents the swath of land that you all have purchased from the State Land Department. So that's our physical area that we are operating in, so to speak, of which design alternatives can emanate and stay within that area. Okay, so, and you can see it's kind of a pie-shaped area there. The idea is to design an intersection. I'm not the roadway engineer, but I'll take a stab at it to say that you want to try to design it at a 90-degree angle as much as possible for safety and operation purposes. You can see it's a T intersection there. One of the benefits of bringing it up and swooping it up, if you will, and to bring it into that 90-degree parallel is for the advent of the future design of what would presumably be a fourth leg of that intersection to the west at some point when State Land Department decides to auction off the rest of that dirt, so to speak, on the west side of the roadway. So not only does the design is to perform in the short term, both from operations and safety standpoint, it has an eye to the future of a fourth leg of that intersection for presumed land uses to the west of this roadway. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's...
It answered. It didn't give me, I don't like the answer.
So you're not the first one to have told me that. That's not to say that can be, you can see we have some space there to play with. So if there's something you're particular or partial to, we can certainly talk about that. We're at the feasibility stage. So the geometrics of that intersection can change as we get to final design. But again, that kind of overarching rule of trying to get to 90 degrees at an intersection is... Yeah,
it's not the 90. It's just that we're going to have all that, we're going to have all that traffic coming from McCulloch, and we're going to have all that traffic coming from the new bridge, and we're going to have the same traffic trying to get onto the same, you know what I mean? We're not, and I don't know if there is a solution, to be honest. I'm just,
Yeah, there is just choice. So some citizens will just continue on McCulloch towards the Nautical, and others that are coming off of the new bridge will turn right on Beachcomber heading towards Site 6 to eliminate all of it.
But they're all going to be stuck in that little section in between McCulloch and...
Which is the current intersection now.
Right.
All of the traffic. I've never backed up there, and I use the island a lot. Currently, that doesn't mean at 20,000 vehicles, it's going to be different. But some of these details will be ironed out at the next phase once we see some more alignment.
No, I just wanted to get his take on it because I thought it was an interesting point Mr. Wisdom brought up.
It is. It's a good observation. And, you can take the traffic modeling results with a grain of salt if you like, but they do support the fact that there would be plenty of capacity there. So one lane of traffic or two lanes of traffic can support, 14,000 trips a day. And the numbers down here were showing 5,000 to 7,000. So, is that going to be precise? Most likely not. But I think the takeaway is that it's showing that there's sufficient capacity there.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Councilmember Campbell?
I'm seeing, if you look at the corner there, there's a road that's already existing. I see almost if you're coming off the bridge, couldn't you just merge yourself in to that particular line? And then unless you want to go back the other way, then you'd have to kind of stop there and go back. But most of the people trying to get on the island are going beyond that. I see almost a merger. Do you see what I see down at the bottom there?
You could have.
Yes. Where
you can keep it. Yeah.
Do you see it at where that T is? Do you see, there's even a road there, right there, and it's within the right of way. Yeah, if you just show them, just like if that actually merged onto that, be it later, you might have to widen it. Who knows what would you have to do later, but that's the first thing that I saw was potential merging, coming across the bridge, just merge if you want to keep going that way. If you want to take a sharp 90 to get back into town, then you can do that too.
It helps getting off, but you're still going to have the choke point coming in. Yes, I see.
Okay. Anyways,
Yeah,
I'm not a traffic engineer.
The observation.
Okay.
Any other final comments?
I think it'll be fine. Two stoplights that close to each other. We've really got it nailed in with Mulberry, so I'm sure it'll be totally fine.
That could go
Two
wrong.
two lights that close. I'm sure it'll be very efficient. So. Yeah, no, because that is the other issue too. We got to consider there is that other light that's right there, and then because originally that used to be a stop sign, and so that it's definitely going to be an interesting area that I think we probably want to zoom in on in the study as well to see how make sure the traffic study is good with that section and how the lights would tie in. And like I said, you like the idea of the road going off to the right there to keep traffic going might be something, but. This is where I think a roundabout would work very well if people knew how to use it.
If you said it.
But this is one of those times where traffic keeps moving. If it's big enough, but you want the stoplight, people stop and you wait. So
Yes, that's some of those operations. Yes. Yeah. Duly noted. Appreciate the observation. Thank you for the input.
All right. Thank you so much for the presentation. Welcome back, and we look forward to our continued work.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. You know you did great if you're getting applause on a bridge. Yeah, good for you. Love it. Yeah.
that's my first one.
All right, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda is item 7.4, which is adopt ordinance number 24-1332, amending the general development plan for phase 2 of the plan development number 07-002-00001, Havasu Foothill Estates, to include tract 2390, approximately 10.27 acres of vacant land, APN 113-01-032, the Villa Estates, and approving the rezone of tract 2390 from residential estates plan development district to allow reduced minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet per lot with a maximum number of lots permitted not to exceed 22 total lots. Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Advance this slide here. The general location of the Villa Estate subdivision is to the northwest of the villas, a smaller lot size portion of the overall Havasu Foothills Estates, and it already accounted for in the overall maximum allowed number of 697 lots by the 2004 Plan Development Ordinance. Access to the subdivision is through the adjacent tract 2381 to the east. And if I can use the mouse to show, that's right here. The subdivision is zoned REPD, Residential Estate Plan Development, which requires a minimum of 15,000 square foot lots. The mixed-use neighborhood lots to the east in the villas are much smaller, and you can see that here in the blue area. The master land use plan shows the subdivision more appropriately in phase 2 than phase 3, as it is directly adjacent to and has access through phase 2, and will be separated from any development in phase 3 by a large wash area. And that is here to the south and the west of it. The proposed layout plan, the proposed subdivision layout will have the smallest lots closest to the adjacent MUN zoned area. And that is here. The MUN's here. This would be the smallest lots. And the closest to the MUN zone area known as the villas, already with the smaller lots. The majority of the planned lots will be 14,000 square feet or more in size, with just a few being less than 14,000, but no smaller than 12,000 square feet. The largest lots are at the west end overlooking the wash, and that is over here. The lot size amendment is being requested due to the topography of the overall subdivision and significant additional drainage issues needing to be addressed across the property. and that caused the initial 22 lots to be redesigned in a manner that accommodates these additional drainage concerns. Let me advance this one slide here. Regarding findings recommendation, the Planning Commission recommended approval 7-0 at its regular meeting on April 17, 2024. And based upon the findings and conditions of approval contained in the staff report, the development review team also recommends approval with one condition, that the maximum number of lots not exceed 22, which is what they've always been planned for. Mr. Mayor, that completes my report. I believe the applicant is in the audience, or representative of the applicant.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Can you talk just briefly about how this fits into the overall plan of the foothills? These 22 lots are already included in the 697 approved lots for the entire area.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a list of all the subdivisions and the number of lots have been approved for them. And in addition, this question came up at the Planning Commission meeting, and staff, that's myself, took the time to actually look at and physically count the existing lots in Havasu Foothills Estates. And what I discovered was the numbers are right on to end up with 697 when the remaining lots in Trinity and Phase 3 are completed.
Excellent, thank you. Are there questions from members of the council for Mr. Gilbert or the applicant's representative? Councilmember Lane?
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert, thank you. And I just want to reiterate and confirm, we're not adding additional homes, we're not subtracting additional homes, we're changing lot sizes or allowing the changes of lot size just due to the topography so that the lots will fit correctly in the space that they have.
That is correct, sir. The reductions from 15,000 to no less than 12,000 square feet, which exceeds the developments that are to the east that it'll connect to in lot size. The majority of the lots will be 14,000 to 15,000 plus in square footage, so they'll be very close to what the existing RE requirement is. There will only be a small number of lots that will actually be affected by this.
Are there any other questions from members of the council? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item? Yeah, please just make your way to the podium and state your name for the record.
Robert Fisher. I noticed on the map there that the west end of that strip of lots has the two very large lots. And it seems to me there's a wash there that makes some of that land pretty steep there that's not really usable on those large lots. Is that correct?
Mr. Gilbert?
Sir, Mr. Mayor, I would like to leave that to the applicant to explain why they designed those lots in that manner.
Thank you. Is the applicant prepared to answer that question? Yeah, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Mac with Iris Development. So part of our grading plan is we pushed out that wash to approximately the toe slope will be the backside of those lots. Coming up 2 to 1, you'll lose about 20 to 25 feet of back of those lots. And that's accommodated for that wash that comes through there.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. All right, would anyone else like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for comment or motion.
Mayor? I'd like Cameron to make a motion.
Yeah. Vice Mayor Moses.
Thank you, Jim.
It's a long one.
Don't worry, I got it. Motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 24-1332, approving an amended general development plan for phase 2 of plan development number 07-002-00001, Havasu Foothills Estates, to include tract 2390, approximately 10.27 acres of vacant land, and approving the rezone of a tract 2390 from residential estate plan development district to residential estate plan development district to allow a reduced minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet per lot with the following condition: maximum number of lots contained within the boundaries of tract 2390 not to exceed 22 total lots.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Moses, a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.5 is adopt ordinance number 24-1333, amending Lake Havasu City Code Title 14 Zoning Development Code Section 14.03.02 Table 3-1 to remove self-storage, mini storage as a permitted use in the mixed-use general district, and Section 14.04.07 to clarify exterior material types permitted in commercial zoning districts. Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Both of these minor amendments have been reviewed and recommended by the Planning Commission, with the second one having been the City Council already as a discussion item on February 13th. The removal of self-storage and mini-storage units from the MU-G district, the mixed-use general, was in response to the council discussions and comments received from the public regarding the storage unit component of the 700 London Bridge Road rezoning case. That was heard on February 13th as well. There are only about 5 other such parcels, that's MUG zone parcels, remaining in the city with this district applied to them, with 3 of the lots in Havasu Foothills Estates and 2 in Havasu Riviera. On the other item, principally the change to exterior materials removes the specific requirement for Adobe brick and stone, which you can see in the first strikeout, and permits corrugated metal on commercial buildings with a minimum of 30% alternate materials on street-facing facades. And staff believes that substantially meets what the direction was that we received from council on February 13th. Mr. Mayor, that's all I have on that item. I'll answer any question you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Are there any questions from members of the council for Mr. Gilbert on this item?
Mayor.
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
Just one question. Can you please again clarify why you're removing the mini storage portion of this? I understand a little bit of why you're doing that, but as somebody that, if you bought a piece of property that was mixed use, and I know a lot of multi-use properties that need small storage units. I did do some investigation, and maybe I'm way off the mark here, but a lot of them would say no more than 10% on a piece of property, because there are situations that come into play for mixed use properties that they do need some small storage unit space upon a whole piece of property. And so can you clarify more why we just removed it completely versus what a lot of other communities do when it comes to this? They at least allow a small percentage.
And if I may, Mr. Gilbert, when this came in to council and we had the discussion, we gave direction to staff to take this out. And so that's why it's coming before us. So this is just zoning by right. So if there is a property owner that has a mixed use proper piece of property and wants to put mini storage, they can do a rezone. Request. It impacts, was it five properties, Mr. Gilbert?
Yes.
Yes, so it's only 5 properties in the entire community this is impacting, but it was directed by staff during our first discussion to remove this item from zoning at right, is why we're here today to discuss that element along with the Adobe and brick and stone designs.
And I agree. And that's why a lot of times we have these second reads. And while you get that out there, then there's some people starting to say, why are they doing this? And then that's when we as council start answering some questions. And so my question to you would be, I guess you're saying that we gave direction to remove it. Since then, I've had some questions about why not just leaving a small portion in for I've heard some real random stuff. Obviously, they don't know about the exact 5 parcels we're talking about, but they are concerned about blocking a developer from actually having a little bit of storage areas. Sometimes I have heard that they even use it for petroleum issues, like they have to have some sort of storage on their property. So that's what I'm trying to say. That's my clarification there. What is the council's opinion on that statement that I've learned since we spoke?
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we've talked already to 2 of the owners, and we're preparing to speak to the other 2 property owners when we're able to reach them up in the foothills. They're aware of the situation. We indicated to them that if they needed to make changes, that they could apply for a planned development overlay that would allow them to have the storage units put in as a result of this. But one more thing I want to go over with the recommendations. The Planning Commission did recommend approval 7-0 at its regular meeting on April 3rd, 2024, and they did add 2 conditions in their recommendation to provide a 6-month grace period before removal of storage units from MUG district goes into effect, and provide written notice to all property owners affected by the change. It's important to note staff does recommend approval with an effective date that's 90 days from the adoption of any ordinance, and that's actually listed in the ordinance itself in your packets.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Well, one of the areas on this particular one is these 5 properties are what it is today. But if someone comes in tomorrow and buys a large parcel and rezones it to this classification, they could put storage units in by right. And that is what we were trying to prevent with all of the actions that we've done in relation to storage units over the last couple of years based on citizen feedback, was to prevent that. So there's still a process. If somebody wants to do that, they can go through a rezone and do a public process so everyone's aware that that's going to be happening versus them having that ability at right. And so that's some of the context of the conversations that we had at our meeting in February, the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, and then where we stand today.
And I appreciate that. That's why I was just listening to the constituents, and they came back and said, I don't want storage units everywhere. I don't want that. I love mixed use. This is awesome. But what I don't like is, and they just gave me scenarios of why they think even a small portion, just instead of wiping it all out. But again, that's what I'm bringing to the table. You guys take it from there.
Are there any other questions or comments before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this item?
Good evening. Got it right that time. Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Dan Roddy. I'm the Western Region Manager for Arizona State Parks and Trails. One of the properties in question that led to this conversation is 700 London Bridge Road, which is directly across the street from Lake Havasu State Park. We definitely support capitalism, free enterprise, and all those other great tenets. But one of the things that I'd like to point out is, in one respect, we're talking about limiting people's ability to do storage units. At the same time, we're changing the code to allow the walls to be 70% corrugated metal and reducing the requirement to have a attractive finish to 30%. That means that I can put the bottom 3 feet can be stone, pavers, what have you. And the top 7 feet can all be corrugated metal. So anybody driving by is going to see a metal wall as they compare it to the vistas that we cherish in this town. This is a town where people spend $50,000 or more to buy vacant lots just to protect their view. I'd like you to consider that as a balance. You're doing one thing here to discourage storage units. At the same time, you're doing another thing over here that makes it easier for me to build a metal building for storage. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Roddy. And some context on that part of the conversation is there was changing the language on our code will allow more flexibility for modern type construction materials that may exist. So it's not just metal buildings. There are some restrictions that Mr. Gilbert showed various designs during our hearing in February and also to the Planning and Zoning Commission. But it is, you are correct, it is 2 items that are happening here in this ordinance. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor?
Vice Mayor Moses?
Yeah, motion.
Please.
I move to adopt ordinance number 24-1333, amending Lake Havasu City Code, section 14.03.02, table 3.1, and section 14.04.07.c.2. The changes made to section 14.03.02, table 3.1, to become effective 90 days from the adoption of this ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Moses, a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next item is item 7.6, award bid for the construction of downtown Catalyst rebid project to Concord General Contracting, Inc. We'll just give staff a chance to switch seats. And we'll introduce Mr. Hart to this item.
All right, thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. It's exciting for me to be able to come before you this evening and present a recommendation of award on a project that I first heard about 6 years ago when I came to work for the city, and honored to be able to bring it to somewhat of a fruition here. So as you're aware, tonight I'm coming before you to recommend award for a bid for the construction of the Downtown Catalyst rebid project to Concord General Contracting, Inc. As a little refresher here, the subject property that we're talking about is on Cuero Drive and McCulloch Boulevard North, right there just off of the Pima Wash. As we kind of zoom in here, you can see a little bit better the project area in terms of right there at the intersection of McCulloch Boulevard and Cuero Drive. I hope I'm saying that right. And then with the Pima Wash behind it. As you're aware, this particular property is about 1.5 acre parcel of land in our downtown area. And it was purchased by the city in 2017 at a location for a downtown catalyst project. So the downtown catalyst project was identified as part of the city's Vision 2020 plan, and this plan was a major contributing factor to the community winning a second place in the Frontier Communications American Best Communications competition. The city hired originally Dig Studios to design the park and ultimately produce a set of plans and specifications for bidding purposes. As you are aware, we did go out to bid one time prior to this, and unfortunately, we did receive two bids, which is good, but unfortunately one bid was $6 million, another bid was closer to $4 million, so we did not have the funds. So we stepped back and did some value engineering to see what could we do to lower the cost and make this, in a sense, more appealing. There were some things that were evident in terms of some of the type of aggregate that we were using that contractors were saying had to be imported in, raising costs, and some other items, one in particular being the shade structures themselves. With us having 13 proposed, there was some costs there in transporting and such. So we looked at this and said, as a base bid, what can we do? And then let's have 4 add alternates and see if where those add alternates come in. As you're more than aware, I'm sure, the first add alternate was our artificial turf, which I'll get to in a minute. Our second add alternate was our pedestrian bridge and land crossing. Our third add alternate was our shade structures, and the fourth was the bathrooms. So as we kind of zoom into the proposed layout, you can see here that the design has stayed the same as when we originally went out to bid in terms of the concrete circle that you see there, and the sidewalks that go into the circle, and then on each end they're off of McCulloch and Quarry. The items there, you'll see there's shrubbery that's along Pima Wash and up along that entryway or parking area of the businesses up there. And then we've looked at expanding from what our original bid was, some of the grass to more grass in particular areas, which, as you'll see here in this demonstration, these areas here now are designated grass areas, which is improvement on what we originally did. So we're excited to be able to keep as much grass as we can there. As I touched on, this is the rebid project. We're currently, should the council choose to award, it would be estimated to be 270 calendar days, 9 months. Anticipated completion would be May 2025. The engineer's bid estimate for the base bid was $2.8 million. We did receive one bid, and that was from Concord General Contracting Incorporated. The base bid itself was $2,646,465, which it came in under our engineer's estimate. The additive alternate one, which is the artificial turf, so a portion of the grass would be changed to artificial turf. That came in at $679,612. The pedestrian bridge, if you recall, was an option that we were asked to look at, and that was going to be going on in the northeast corner there, crossing Pima Wash. That came in at $440,845. The shade structures, there was proposed 13 structures. We put 9 of them on the additive alternate. And one of the reasons for that is some of those structures, as they began to circle the angles of the roofing change, which we were being told by contractors made it a little bit more complicated to construct those, and a lot of welds. So we left 4 in, which ended up being on the southeast corner there, 2 on each side of the entrance as you come in. And then there was the bathroom that came in at $363,406, and that bathroom was located off of McCulloch Drive as you come in off the sidewalk there by Pima Wash. As we look at the funding for this project, the funding is mainly grants, and you'll see here that there is $800,000 in ABC grant funding. There is $1 million in the LWCF grant funding. There is $610,000 with the WIFA grant funding, and that in particular relates to the amount of turf that we're taking out, which is the circles and such, and they're willing to contribute that much towards that. And that would leave for the general fund, and this PowerPoint, unfortunately, I think is a little off. I didn't write in the new number, but I believe it's now $236,465. So when you put that in a pretty pie chart, you get 38% of the funding comes from the LWCF grant. 30% of the funding comes from the ABC grant. 23% of the funding comes from the WIFA grant, leaving 9% coming out of the general funds. So with that, I would like to make a recommendation, the award of the base bid for the construction of the downtown Catalyst rebid project to Concord General Contracting, Inc. in the amount of $2,646,465. And I'm willing to take questions now.
Thank you, Mr. Hart, for that presentation. It's we finally made it to a point where we can have the discussion about downtown Catalyst. So I'm just going to put some frame of where we're at and why we're here. So in over 8 years ago, the outgoing CEO at the time from Frontier Communications wanted to do something to drive economic development for rural communities across America. Those are the markets in which they serve. And so they set aside $15 million total in partnerships with other folks and from Frontier to create this award process. And we had over 350 communities entered into the competition. Lake Havasu City made it through the semifinals, the quarterfinals, I guess the quarterfinals, then the semifinals, and then up to the top 10, and then was a $2 million grand prize winner. And it was all based on our economic and revitalization plan, which came together with the help of Arizona Town Hall, which is an organization that helps bring community conversations together, where over 200 members of our community met at the gym at ASU, representing every walk of life. So every social group, civic group, fraternal organizations, economic development organizations, citizens at large, the education community, coming together to really talk about what our community was going to look like in the future. Out of that day, it was about 8 hours. And at the end of that, 5 pillars of change were created out of all of those conversations. One was economic development and job creation. Our second was education and talent supply. The third was tourism and place development. The fourth was water. And the fifth was community engagement. How do we engage with our community? Lots of great work has happened across our community on those 5 pillars of change across all of those sectors. There was various programs of work still in place right now that have done amazing things for our community. As the money was being awarded, the same group got back together and talked about where should this money go towards. And 3 projects rose to the top. They were the Downtown Calais project, which we're talking about this evening. The other one was the co-location or co-workspace, which is what is now Nomadic in the downtown area. And then the third was an environmental learning center dealing with water and the such. And so monies were allocated to each of those. Over several years, we've had lots of different iterations of what this Downtown Calais would look like, from private-public partnerships to a gathering space. It had lots of community engagement. And, one of the things that we do and we do well is we engage with the community. But as we engage with the community more and more, we get a lot of feedback about different projects and, should this happen or shouldn't it happen? Like Havasu City citizens were really proud when we won this competition, and it was based on some of these projects. I just want to remind us of where we were to why we are here today, to create an area that our citizens can gather, and it's a multi-purpose facility that allows our citizens to use it in the ways they currently use it today, just in a more efficient way. So we have lots of art festivals and fairs and groups that go down in that area. We have lots of fundraisers that happen in there. We have people that land hot air balloons in there and play fetch with their dog and take their kids down there. Lots of different uses occur at this space. But this would give everyday citizens and event organizers an opportunity to have a place that is easy to use. And if you haven't gone to an event there, or just go to one, during one of the larger events, you might not realize the change in topography. It's very difficult to get up onto the lot, especially if you have a stroller or a walker or a wheelchair or any of those types of things. As an event promoter, it's really hard to get electricity in there and seating and those types of things. So this takes into account all of those. Certainly, this isn't everything that we need. There's 4 alternatives that certainly we can have the discussion this evening about. But with those alternatives, I would just like to turn our eyes towards all things that we've developed as far as recreational or public amenities within our community that we have the ability to grow and expand. So we get something started today based on our actions to be able to move forward, and expansion can occur like has been happening throughout our community. At Rotary Park's a great example. London Bridge Beach, Dick Stamp Park, and the pickleball courts. Lots of things have grown over the years based on passion projects and things that are important to citizens. And so I just want to give some of that context of why we're here, why we got here, and why this is in front of us. This project has been in front of our Parks and Rec Advisory Board, so I thank all of those members for their engagement. It's been involved in several public engagements throughout the last several years since Dig Studios was hired, and now we actually have the opportunity to get something to move forward. So with that context, I'll open up to questions and comments from members of the council on this particular project for Mr. Hart or anyone else. Yeah, Councilmember Lynn?
Mr. Mayor, in the packet that I have, there is a document here that has Downtown Catalyst rebid project. Mr. Hart, do you know this one? Do we have a slide for that?
We sort of do. We have this right here, which covers similar to what you're talking about there.
Okay, so I guess what I would like the audience to see and our constituents to see is that base bid. So I don't want to necessarily read through it, but maybe we need to, so that they understand what that base bid, which is already over what this council already said that we were going to approve in this project. And I don't want to read it, but do you want me to read it? Because it's not on here.
Yeah, sure. So the base bid is, if you look at the Concord general contracting, it's the 2.6 million is base.
But this is detailed.
Absolutely. So the budget currently is 2.9 million. So in our current budget today, is that correct, Mr. Knudsen? Yeah, 2.9.
I just think I want to clarify what our constituents are going to think that they're getting for 2.6, I don't know what the difference of I understand the scope of work. I want the constituents to know what they're getting for that price. So do you mind if I read these?
Or Mr. Hart can summarize it, and then if there's anything you want to add.
I actually have what you're referring to, Lynn. I'm sorry, apologize, Councilwoman Lynn. So typically when we come before you, we only present the dollar amount. We don't present all the various bid items, which is why we didn't do that here. But essentially, what you're seeing here is the things that are included are the site earthwork, which is the final fine grading. And then we'll have our roadway improvements. We'll have on-site pedestrian and vehicle paving, which comes in off of McCulloch. We'll have the landscape and or the site development is the next bid item, which is included those 4 structures we talked about. We'll have the landscaping and irrigation. We'll have the water supply, which is the for irrigation and the city to provide the meter. We'll have storm sewer and drainage infrastructure. We'll have the sanitary sewer component, which relates to alternate 4. We'll have the bathroom structure, so they'll be real close to there in this particular bid. We'll have our electric service, distribution, and control, so that'll be throughout all around the circle, and we'll have the site lighting. Is that helpful?
Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to get at is at I can barely see this, the $2.6 million. All that's doing is setting it up to do these additional 4 things. Because if we decide not to do any of these 4 things, I'm not really sure where this leaves this piece of property except for prepping it to do these 4 things. And you're still at 2.6. So by the end of the project, which we don't have this slide up, I'm really sorry, I cannot read this. It's almost $5 million.
Would you like this copy?
Well, honestly, I wish everybody could see this slide, but
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's not a slide, but anyone that's watching at home or on your phones, you can grab it. It's on the agenda, and it's right after the council communication. It's a public document that has what the outline is of this. So the base bid, maybe if we can paint the picture of what the base bid does, maybe Mr. Knutson, if you could talk about what the base bid does for this site, and then what the 4 alternatives do.
Sure, Mayor, thank you. And then Mr. Hart can assist with some of the details. But essentially, what that base bid is accomplishing is bringing that lot to grade off of McCulloch in particular. So there's a bit of a steep hike that takes place when trying to access that property off of McCulloch in particular. We're trying to open up a space for a social gathering spot for special events. So access from whether it's Curio or McCulloch is important. There's a substantial amount of dirt work that city staff is going to be doing to bring down the cost of the bid. So we're trying to be as creative and as possible and to utilize the least amount of general fund dollars as possible. So that's the strategy. That's the orders the directive that staff got from council. So you'll see the grading, which takes the rough grade by city staff and the final grade by the contractor. And then you're looking at, which is a substantial amount of work and cost associated with that. A large portion of the cost of the project is electrical. So wiring that entire space, including and utilizing the circle that you see to provide electrical throughout the project. That'll help with lighting. That'll help with different vendors that would locate at that space for the food trucks and the generators and all the booths that would be welcome at this space. So, and then the large portion of that obviously is that we're looking at 4 shade structures, I believe is what we have in there right now. We did remove some from the project to again try to get it down to as minimal general fund dollars as possible. Grass sod that's utilized there. The taps to provide bathrooms if so choose, either through this contract. The city team has identified a path forward outside of this contract for possibly lesser dollars. So that's something else that the city team is coming to the table with some different ideas on how to mitigate some of those costs as well too. But the grading, which is a substantial amount of money in relation to the project, electrical, which is a big bulk of that project as well too, and then everything else they indicate there with regards to concrete, sod, and landscaping.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Knudsen.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think that my question is just if this council decided not to do any additional alternative things, whether it's the turf, the bridge, the shade structure, the bathrooms. That 2.6, I understand what's going to be in there. Okay, I understand what you're doing there. What is changing what it actually looks like besides you put all this extra infrastructure in there? It's going to look exactly the same that it is, correct? Unless we do these additional things.
Yeah, Councilmember Lynn, no, it'll look completely different. So it'll look as what's on the screen right now, that all of the green spaces are green. There's some landscaping components. The white circle with the line through it, that's all sidewalk base. And so it'll have a visual look that's different, but it'll also be more efficient to use. You'll be able to come off of it right off of the sidewalk without any changes in topography. It'll have better electrical infrastructure, which from an event perspective is going to be very, very helpful. So it'll have all of those, and it'll have a good base should future councils or future organizations want to come together in partnership for other areas. But we do have the ability to discuss tonight if we want to do any of the alternates as well. So it would be public improvements. Now there's another component to this as well. So 91% of this is funded through, let's call it grant funding. So there's three different grant sources. The ABC, which is America's Best Community, is what we use the term ABC for. There's that money, but we also have grants from Arizona State Parks and Trails, and it's very hard to get any additional grants when we're not spending the grant monies that we have now. And so to be able to move forward, we have 91% of what we see in front of us is funded directly through grants that have been aggressively sought after, either through the competition process or our grants team seeking them out. But it'll be a noticeable difference and improvement in this downtown area with just the base bid here alone.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan?
I'd like to weigh in. I've been pretty skeptical of this from the beginning. Because I think it's a pretty good usable lot. I'm kind of a little opposite in this. I like the base bid. I was a little nervous with all the other stuff we had, the structures and the bathrooms and all that. I kind of like the base bid as it is. Like I said, it's 91% grant funded. We've toned it down. We've added the grass. The only thing, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the restrooms. I think it also creates a homeless issue and people hanging out around them, and so I think that's something that maybe we could wait on and do ourselves. The only thing I am concerned about is the bridge. I think to me, the bridge is definitely something I would need in order to approve this. But I know in talking with the city manager that they believe we could probably do it ourselves cheaper, which I'm okay with, as long as it's definitely something that we're going to include into it and bring it back to council. You hear me now? Yeah, no, I like it that we stripped it down to the base bid. We're using very little. My thing was I didn't want us to use too much of the general fund. And I get a little nervous when architects want to design something that looks cool, but it's very, very expensive. So like I said, I kind of like that it is the base bid. I'm not a big fan of the turf. You can't drive on it. For the different vehicles, the bathrooms, I think we should hold off on and wait and see. Like I said, in the shade structures, like I said, with a lot of the events we have, they bring their shade and it's designed for an event area. So like I said, I'm on board with the base bid, but like I said, I would like to see us definitely incorporate the bridge in the future, the very, very, very near future. But like I said, if we could do it outside of this bid, I'd like to see us, the city, do it themselves and save money in that area. So other than that, like I said, I like it, and I'm glad that we got real on it and kind of stripped it down, but it's still, like I said, there's still a lot of electrical work, a lot of groundwork, moving a lot of earth. And like I said, I'm on board with it as long as we have the bridge. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Dolan. Are there any other comments or questions? Councilmember Campbell?
Well, here we go. You got your version of the story. Now I'm going to just tell me mine. That's why you elect 7 people. So we all have different opinions, I suppose. Originally, I went all the way down that rabbit hole, and I just want to say something. The original plan was for the city to build a public square with an amphitheater on half the property and restaurants, pubs, and shops on the other half. The idea was to attract more people downtown, as Flagstaff has done with their public square. Was not supposed to be a park, as it doesn't help revitalize downtown. So that was one comment. Another thing, if you went back to those days and you wanted to know what the terminology was for community catalyst building remediation. So basically we had a piece of property we bought. We were worried about downtown. We wanted to revitalize it. It's kind of the same thing. We're giving it a facelift. We want to encourage people. We want to encourage new businesses all around this park so that we can almost give examples of the visual that we want to move forward. In 2016, we talked about high density and going 3 stories up with no consideration of the parking at all or parking plans. And so again, I'm just a little confused about the direction we're going right now. I'm sure right now they have the votes to do this, but I just want to be on record for you to know why I may be voting no on this today. This one said, community catalyst, a building, if remediated, that would stimulate additional economy and growth or reinvest in the community, especially using private sector financial investments. That was literally to bring, we own the property, the city did. We did Yard City, which we did as a catalyst to show developers, if you buy into our grand plan, these are kind of the fun things we can do on First Fridays in our small section amphitheater. I also walked the property today with Mr. Harrison, and I was extremely concerned about that wash. It's very wide, obviously. I have other plans on how we could have fixed it, but I was so surprised at how it's bad. It's undermined pretty bad. Let's just say if somebody falls in that, I don't think you're going to get out too easily. So again, I feel there's no planning in place. And I know that they said, well, we reached out to people, Nancy, and nobody came to the table. As long as I've sat on this city council, I've yet to see outreach other than we're going to build a park, bring the parks people here to tell us what they want, which I understand. You know what they want? They do want bathrooms. I've heard that. They want some shade covers. They do want some picnic benches. They want a gathering site. They don't want to spend $5.4 million to get that. They want to do it this way with the intent to continue to market the end plan, which was shops and development all around it. So I went a little farther, and you guys all saw this 3 years ago, and sometimes the rest of you can't see it, so I'll try to explain it to you. I did put this in front of you guys through the help of Kelly Williams. Thank you so much for supporting me on this. Sometimes visually, you have one. Visually, I can go off and nobody knows what I'm talking about, but I started jumping into downtown catalysts programs that were being recommended, supported, granted 10 and 12 years ago. And they were once again bringing the private sector in with the public sector, all of them. So again, picture after picture I pull up. And what it is parking garages in downtown to make sure that there's plenty of parking. The front end of the property, when I spoke to investors, they said, I don't want to be the end of the parking lot or over on Pima. What's the Quirio, right? Quirio. I want to be up front on McCulloch. And if I can go 3 stories high, I want to go 3 stories high. So I don't make a lot of money, but I ended up putting together potential ideas here. That's what you guys have in front of you. Our parking garages, one actually shows a whole park to the back end. You guys can't see it. I will leave some of these at the counter if anybody wants to look at what I'm looking at. But basically, it shows a public-private partnership where there includes a parking garage and an event center and an amphitheater and a stage. And so then I dug a little deeper, and one of them, the Milbourne parking garage, beautiful complex, gorgeous. It looked beautiful there. Came in at $7.5 million. And that is with a private investor's investment on this. And Mr. Gray, you're out here, and I'm sure you're understanding everything I'm saying, that private entity money coming in, and that was the original intent of this, and to bring the First Fridays to the park event, stimulating the economy with all the restaurants and bars that we are going to bring in by allowing them to be on this property. But today, we are going to be voting for this. I will not be voting for it because I really, if it was just if you just kept the grass the way it was and threw a little stage out there and give me the bridge because you can't get to the parking lot unless you walk all the way around, it's just not my plan. It's not that it has to be my plan. I'm saying our plan, and it was never the original. The reason why we didn't even get the money was for other reasons. So this is why I'm fighting for this today. I would really love for us to have really worked harder to get investors to the table. And when I came back, and I think I asked somebody 3 years ago, I said, why hasn't anybody really looked at moving the investors forward? Why didn't they talk about a parking garage? Because that's what they want. They want to be able to park there. And they said, that plan was on the table, Nancy. Go talk to this developer and this developer. But the city didn't want it. So that's where we're here today. It's been almost 12 years. We don't have a private-public partnership here. We don't have parking. We don't have a bridge. And we don't have restrooms. We have porta potties that are going to be sitting next to our splash pad. And we're going to be spending $2.6 million, and congratulations, the grant's going to come up with almost most of it. So we don't have to pay for that. But I have one other problem. I was at Sarah Park this past weekend with my grandson again. Sarah Park has not been touched in I don't know how many years. The roads, the parking lots, the ball fields are, the grade on the ball fields are off, where the kids have to walk through a puddle almost to get to their field. There's no dugouts for them. There's two porta potties sitting there because the bathrooms always plug up, because there's not many of those either. So where is the funding going to go to maintain this? Or is Sarah Park, Rotary Park, dog parks, pickleball parks, the 17 parks that we have here in our community, are they going to continue to be siphoned for one new park and another new park? Or can we just, my good friend Mr. Diaz once said, sometimes we got to slow down to speed up. And this is just the wrong plan for me. And I'm sorry, but I will be voting no.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from members of the council? Councilmember Lane?
Thank you. I wasn't sure I was going to speak on the item. Can you guys hear me all right? I'll move this a little closer. Yeah, I'll get a little closer. So 6 years we've been working on this thing. 6 years. If we'd have built this 6 years ago, it probably wouldn't cost us what it's costing us today. $2.6 million. Are we getting everything we want for that kind of money? I mean, we look at that money, it's like, holy cow, we should be able to build anything. But it's what we have. And I have to thank the staff for coming up with 91% of it being paid for with grant funding coming through. So to just talk what a few people have said, Councilmember Campbell's talked about parking structure. We have a giant parking lot right next door to this on the other side of the wash that isn't used 350 days out of the year. It's only when we have the big events that parking lot even gets used. So building a parking structure, just my idea, I don't think is a good use of this land. When it comes to the Catalyst project, yeah, we need to grade that as we have mentioned, the grading there for if you're in a wheelchair or a walker or anything else, trying to get to the top of that is not a good thing. We need to be able to grade that down so people have better access. The amount of concrete that's there is good, in my opinion. For one, when we need to have vehicles that drive in there, they can drive on that, and we can put all of the electrical underneath there. The sod, I do believe that it should be real grass. We have a lot of events that happen there. You've all heard what we've talked about already. The downtown, the First Fridays, the event space that they use for that, they've outgrown that space. I mean, that has been so successful. They'd be able to utilize this for that. All of the crafts fairs and the different events that happen there, the balloons that launch from there, will all still be able to do that. I don't like the idea of artificial turf. A lot of people do take their dogs over there, and different, you're sitting down to watch a concert or enjoy something. Do you want to actually be on artificial turf? I think after everybody is walking around there or the coyotes are over there, I think the smell would be atrocious. And I agree with Mr. Dolan. When it comes to the bathrooms, I think that, I don't think they're in this bid right here because they are so expensive through the developer that I think we can do it ourselves a lot cheaper. And we're doing a lot of the work already. So do I wish we got more for 2.6 million? No. I mean, yes, I wish we did. I mean, don't we all? But I think it's time to move forward. I think it's time to make a decision. The people want to get downtown gathering place where they can hold events and have crafts fairs and do charity events. I think this fits that bill. And the fact that 91% of it is done with grant funding to the point of $2.6 million, I think is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Are there any other comments before we open the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. We'll go ahead and open that for citizens that want to address council on this item. You don't have to sign up, but we did have a citizen sign up, Mr. Harrison, and then we'll open it up to everyone. So,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. My name is Sam Harrison. I've had the case of the hiccups for about 3 hours now, and they're not going away, so enjoy. There's just a couple things that I wanted to point out. Having walked the property with Councilmember Campbell this afternoon, I got there about a half an hour before she did, and really got a lay of the land. And I'm like, holy crap, this thing really kicks up towards the back corner where it's hitting Pima Wash. And then I got over there, and as Ms. Campbell said, you look down there, it's one heck of a drop to get to the bottom, and one heck of a climb to get back out. But then I look straight up the street here, or up the wash at Mesquite, and they've got this big, beautiful culvert built so they could run a road over it. And at McCulloch, they did the same thing. And boy, while we say that 350 days a year the parking lot is empty, is it Michelina said that? I really think if you go and park outside of Yard City, you'll find that Yard City is empty about 350 days a year as well. And so there's been that investment and the big show off of, hey, here's what we can do with some cool space downtown. And really, we've already got one that's being used precious little. And now we're taking an acre and a half of what my dad used to say, they're not building any more of it. It's dirt, and it's on Main Street downtown. We get one chance to do this right. And I'm not sure a big concrete circle in the middle of a grassy knoll is the correct thing to do. With that, I'll yield to the next person.
Thank you.
Robert Fisher. I'm in large agreement with Councilman Campbell. There's a lot of unintended consequences that come with one of these kinds of projects. I haven't heard anybody talk about the increased maintenance cost to the city to maintain the grass, to maintain the electrical, and all that stuff that goes on, and how that's going to affect the city budget. So someone mentioned the business of restrooms. Yeah, they're an attractive nuisance most of the time. We have a few homeless people around here, and they like to camp out in nice grassy places and with shade and restroom facilities. And I didn't hear anybody talk about any of that. And there's the nuisance factor of having that kind of thing. Right now, it seems like everybody's taken the use of it that we had, the games the people are playing there, the dog park kind of thing, and using it quite a bit. But I think you're going to restrict the ability of having large events, like when you have the street fairs, the Desert Storm, and other of those kinds of things. That piece of property really makes the event work pretty well to have that extra real estate to put it on. And I think with the plan you have, you're going to restrict the ability to do that. So I think that I haven't quite understood why this kind of a project is so supposed to rejuvenate the downtown. I don't quite see why that's going to work that way. It just doesn't seem like it's going to have the intended effect. So I urge you to consider the unintended consequences of what you're thinking of doing and the continual expense to the city as you have to maintain this thing in perpetuity, and the utilization of it. I'm not sure there's enough people who live in close proximity there to really think of it as their own little park. I know I live quite a ways away, so it wouldn't be something I would use, but there might be some people there that would come down there, but I'm not sure how it works to benefit the downtown. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a couple concerns. One,
could you please state your name?
Yes, my name is Harold Meeks. I'm a resident here in Lake Havasu. So Concord, it's kind of odd to me. I just left the school board, and every school project Concord is doing and I'm an electrical contractor. I have been for 37 years. I've never seen one company get 25%. Never. It doesn't happen. How is it that one company is getting 100%? Every single one for the school, I told them, that seems really odd to me. I was talking to them over there, and then I come over here, Concord's doing this one. I'm sorry, but if you look deep enough, there has to be something rotten down there, because that can't happen. I'm a contractor. It just doesn't happen. One company can't get everything. That's a real red flag to me. But besides that, if you go back to the plan, you're talking about that you were going to be able to drive in. If you look on the plan, you have bushes or trees or whatever. There's the only area you're going to be able to drive in is that concrete area, and it's not very wide. So now you see the concrete area? It's not much wider than the handicap ramp. So it might be 8 feet wide. But if you think of the vehicles that we've been parking on there with all the things that are going on, you wouldn't be able to get those vehicles in there. So the downtown area isn't going to be able to have all the things that they've been doing, because now you've just restricted it. So I know they've been working on the plan a long time, but I don't know, but it was very concerning to me about Concord over at the school, and now I'm really concerned. But I'm curious as to how many things they've done now in the past. It's really odd. Anyway.
Mr. Meek, just a clarification. That area you're talking about is the width of a handicap ramp. That is for pedestrians. It's in the upper left-hand corner. You'll see the proposed drive access saw cut. That's how the vehicles will drive in, like the semis for Desert Storm and the like. So right now they're having to jump a curb and go up that topography. So the area you mentioned is that width because it is only for pedestrians. Yeah, next speaker, please just make your way to the podium. State your name for the record.
Donna McCoy, prior city council member, served on the ABC committee, which was an incredible experience. We got to hear from hundreds of people, not just the ones that actually attended, but for the people that talked to them about what it was that we wanted for our downtown and our city. And I have to say that unfortunately, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, and all the planning of this, things have changed a lot. You know, we did set it up so that we could have public as well as private sector. And it was all great and fun. Everybody was all on board and they wanted it. And then the recession destroyed everything. And so things came to a stop. Those people said, okay, we can't do this now. Well, the city doesn't need to be in the building and renting or selling business, but they still want a gathering place that people can come to. That's why when we have these big events, you can't walk down the street because there's so many people that want to be a part of it. And that's a great majority of the people that live in this city. So we have to remember this is good. And, you know, hopefully my hope is that by getting something going, saying, look, we want to get this moving. We want to have a place people can come to, whether it's a little stage or it's just a flat area that people can gather and meet and talk. But definitely the property has to be, Nancy, the property has to be changed. And that's expensive. It's way more expensive than it was years ago when this first came about. And if we wait for more years, guess what? It's not going to go down. It's going to keep going up unless we have another recession and everything goes down. But I think this is important. It's important to do this. We won the money for this. That's what the money was to be used for, and that's what it's designed for. I know there are people that don't like it being called a park, but guess what? It's a park. You know, is it the kind of park that you can go and sit out and have a picnic on if you want? But most of us want a place to gather when we do have our big events, or they want to do an art show, or they want to do something that they don't have to rent a building for. And this is really good for our city. We need to look at that. I just want to say, got my note here. But I think this is something that is a good thing for us to experience. Would we like it less? Absolutely. None of us want to pay this kind of money, but you're not going to get it any cheaper. You're really not. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and people can come in and use, and it'll be a beautiful area for our downtown. And that's what we need. Not just a vacant lot that half the people can't even use because they can't get up the hill in their wheelchairs, or like your strollers, or you're like me and you're old. Thank you.
Thank you.
And please, 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 no roundabouts in Lake Havasu.
Thank you.
Hi, Joan DeZero. I too think, looking at this, it's a good beginning. Like Rotary Park was not Rotary Park you see today when you guys first started it. And we have, my Sunrise Rotary Club does the brews and brats there, and we get no one with disabilities because they can't get around in there, and that it should be for everybody to get to. I think the big key for me is not doing the alternatives at this point, because it's staying within the 2.9 budget. You're right there. I think if you stay with the 2.6, building costs never come in at what they tell us they're coming in at. It's just, having had a house just built, I figured that out. So I think we can start with the 2.6, doing what they basically are saying is happening. And I think it'll be a big improvement for that area. Like you said, Desert Storm, but also like Brews and Brats and the other things that we're doing down there to get us started. And then as the years come forward, we could add to these within the budget. The grant writers are great in this city, and if they continue doing what they're doing, get some more to put these alternatives in as we go. So I do think it's a good basic plan to get started with. I do think that it's staying within the budget is going to be key, I think, for us at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don Wisdom. I did present to the council a while back in Flagstaff. They took a railroad car and made a bridge for a culvert, natural culvert up in the mountains. It looked very attractive to me. I think that would solve a real problem. I don't like, wherever it went, the concept of this circle of concrete. I would like to see baseball games played there. I'd like to see some football games played there. I'd like to see some soccer games played there. I even like to see a golf driving range. They have one in California with thousands of people come to hit golf balls. You know, covering this thing up with concrete and trees, it's just a nice piece of grass. We can do a lot of things with it and not spend that kind of money. That money that we got for that, can we spend that like at Sarah Park? Or does it have to be spent on the grassy knoll? We need to do some serious thinking. Been thinking for a long time. Haven't gotten anywhere. But I don't want to see someone's concept of making that some kind of a special looking place that nobody's going to go. There's no need to go there. What would you want it to do to go to the new concept? What would you do there? What I thought. Nobody knows. Thank you. Thank you. Damn.
Morgan Braden. I wanted to bring a couple points to mind here. I personally do use that space on several occasions. Number one, I do fly my balloon out of there once in a while. If we put the concrete in there, limit there's a driveway to get up on there right now. We don't have to up a curb. There is a driveway that allows us to get on that lot right now. It is used on a regular basis. But I also do a lot of the craft shows there with a separate business that my wife and I have. I've talked to the gentleman that does that. puts that on. He used to do 2 a year there. He is not anymore because it's hard to put it on, especially with the way we've got it set up now. My point is, do we really need to make major changes to that area in order to make it accessible for everybody and used for the purposes it is now? What we really need is that bridge so that people, when it is used for large gatherings, put a stage on the very end of it, put a bridge across there so we have something that we can use for lots of purposes and put that in there. I don't think the shade things and electricity and bathrooms, no, we don't need bathrooms there in my opinion. We put porta potties in there from when it is to be used for these type of events, just like they do in the craft shows that I use it for. When I'm putting my booth in, we put in porta potties. It has no problem at all. So I don't think we need to use that expense. The $2.6 million, granted 91% is covered by the grants that we have right now. That's great. But we're going to eventually have to do more, and that's going to come out of the city budget, come out of our funds. If we end up having to do the whole thing, that was $4.5 million. Well, there's several $1 million there that we could use for better purposes, in my opinion, like fixing more of our roads or something. We need to value and figure out what we're going to be using our city funds for the best results and returns for the taxpaying citizens that are paying into our city funds. And I just question whether what we want to do with that lot right now is actually the best thing for that lot at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. James Gray with Partnership for Economic Development. Was also a member of the Vision 2020 team. I kind of want to give you some different perspective and encourage you to move forward. But the perspective that I want to give you is why sometimes you move forward with a basic starting point, right? So we won $400,000 to build a co-location space. We didn't go build a new building. We went and leased a very small space, and we started running it, and we started learning a lot about the entrepreneurs we were working with. We started learning about how the space had to be open. We were doing it with emails and keys, and it was hard, and it was tough, and it was just like we learned a million lessons. And over the 5 years when we built the market, we ultimately built Nomadic in support of the Downtown Catalyst. We started First Friday Havasu. We started it with Darth Vader, a generator, in an alley. And we weren't even sure people would come. Last First Friday, that was the 40th First Friday. So I've been to 38 of them. Maybe sometimes I'm like, oh, you know, that's a third every Friday. Anyways, but the point is, there's been some people that have talked about Yard City. Yard City was a concept. Yard City was built for $52,000 with our partners, and we put a $7,000 disco trailer on it. It has worked for 5 years, but also it has started to create some new habitual habits of people coming downtown and people gathering. There's no doubt. Like, we have a commercial building down there. Downtown we are now with the Downtown Association talking about parking. And as my friend Dave DePiel says, and I think he said it to John Parrott, did you ever imagine a day we'd actually really be talking about parking? Right? There is an impact for people that need to park. And I'll just leave you with this last thing, because I'm really encouraging to move forward with the plan you have. Our biggest events, Desert Storm, Winterfest, you're already hosting 30, 40, 50,000 people on that lot. It's your calling card to so many different people. And yet it doesn't have electricity. It's not ADA. It's not our best foot forward. So Yes, it's not what we want, but man, if it can fit a lot of things and we could start growing out of this, I think you'd be surprised how many people will really like it, and it'll grow and it'll evolve out of that. And just remember, you bought that piece of property at a great time because it is still the absolute heart of downtown. So just encouraging. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Parrott, I don't think I've ever come here twice in one night. I live at 2490 Lima Drive. I'm employed by Coldwell Banker Real Estate, and I do own property in the downtown area. I don't think that this project is going to benefit my building or my tenants, but I'm a big fan of the catalyst idea. I've seen what happened in Flagstaff with their stage, and I've seen what happened in Gilbert, and you all know about Telluride, Colorado, where they had a stage, and it just completely turned that town around. I think one of the greatest catalyst projects in our state is in the Prescott Courthouse. It's a huge chunk of land with a courthouse in the middle, and people come and sit and talk. One of the ABC's goals was younger families, younger entrepreneurs, helping our students at ASU. Sometimes you don't want to go in a bar. You don't want to take your kids in a bar. You want to bring a couple of bottles of water, sit, maybe listen to some music. I mean, that's the idea of what this was. I'm also a real admirer of the people who were part of the ABC group, and I was not part of that. I attended the one town hall meeting, but I take no credit for that. But they did a great job, and this was their number one project that they said should be done, and I think the city owes them that to get started on it. If I understand government accounting, you're talking about a couple $100,000 from the general fund, but then you're going to talk about $100,000 for construction supervision. So let's just say the city's going to put $400,000 in it. Well, there's 60,000 of us here, so that's $6 a piece. We're going to get a $3 million asset for $400,000. That's a better deal than you get at the airport.
Thank you.
Good evening, Bonnie Toy, live from City Hall or wherever this place is. The map that you showed of it confused me where you were talking about where the cars were supposed to come on. And because looking at it back there, it looks to me like it's coming in, you coming in on McCulloch? No.
No, that's pedestrian traffic.
You're talking about up at the very top right-hand side. Isn't that there's a business back there? Doesn't that interfere with their business?
It's in the upper left. It's it's Querio. The Querio Road it's in the upper left area, going across the green grass.
It says proposed drive access.
Okay, apparently I'm looking at it completely wrong.
Yeah, that's Querio.
That side is Querio, or okay, so that little thing is supposed to be an access for the vehicles to drive on there. I'm sorry. The other reason I came up was when he compared Yard City to this. I've been to Yard City a couple of times over the last couple of years. And in my scooter, my electric scooter, when I was unable to walk, when I was able to walk and go to Yard City with my walker, I've been there. And Yard City is not safe for someone who is disabled. I have problems walking around there with my cane. So going from scooter to walker to cane, Yard City is not safe for anyone who is disabled to use that as an example to compare this to that, I had an easier time walking around the grass lot up there with the walker than I did at Yard City with the way it's designed completely. And that is just still, your design really looks weird. And bathrooms are needed. I don't know where these people like to go potty, but putting up portable potties to come and go just seems irresponsible. Also, do you guys have plans for, again, the future? It is an open park, like other people have said, that there are people in the area who are going to use the area, and happens to be across the street from several bars where people are drunk. And from what I understand, thankfully it's never happened to me, but people get roofied a lot across the street. You put in a park where bathrooms and shade structures are accessible all night long just seems to me a really great, attractive place for roofs to happen. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Ashley Pasquale, and I was a member of the Vision 2020 and the America's Best Communities Committee, and I facilitated one of the tables at the town hall in 2017, and there was a lot of excitement. It was a great opportunity to bring the community together and to have this prioritized, and that was 7 years ago, but I don't feel that that's been time wasted. I appreciate the diligence of this city council and those who served before you to ensure that there were opportunities for public input through the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meetings, through city focus group sessions, and of course here at the city council meetings. And it may not be everything that everyone wanted it to be, but I think that this is a great opportunity for this city council to move forward and create a space that is accessible for everyone, all of our residents, and continues to promote that downtown and a place to be and a convene and a park to use for citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joelle Dickinson. I'm the chairperson for the Chamber Foundation for Education and Leadership. I'm here because just the notes that I've been taking, it seems like this project has been in the works for many years, being led by citizens of the community, and the majority of the funding has been done by grants and funding from America's Best Community. I think that this is a good start for this project. Bringing to me why I'm here. Several of you were at the ribbon cutting that the Leadership Lake Havasu, the class of 24 just did. Those funds were raised by community members. It was about $55,000. So I think that clubs and organizations, we could absolutely partner with those people to add on these additional things like the bridge or the shade or the bathroom. So if that was something you're concerned about, I think the community really showed up for this class. We're really proud of them. And so that's just something to consider when you do your vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. I'm Andrea Hellard. I'm the CEO of the Lake Havasu Area Chamber of Commerce, and I wanted to just say a few words. I was also part of the town hall for the Vision 2020, and I think one of the most important things that we learned from that particular day was that ideas like this come with a vision, right? And not every single time that you build a vision does it always happen overnight. We're at a position right now where we're able to take what we started with a vision, and maybe it doesn't look like exactly what we wanted it to look like back then, but we're also in an economy where the money back then doesn't go as far as it would now today. Like, we know we have to start with something. It's a beautiful vision. And I do think that, with Ashley and Joelle's comments, one of the things that we're really good at in this community is supporting one another. There's always a path forward. So being able to start with something like this and then gathering our minds together, being able to take the vision that we have and figuring out what the next step is. This may be step one. We need to figure out what step 2, step 3, step 4 is to get to that full vision of what we want to see. But I really want to applaud the work that's gone into this, because 7 years is a long time to try to think of how to build this out. And I know it's not one mind, it's not two mind, it's hundreds of people who thought this through. And so I just want to say thank you guys for the work that you've put into this so far. I'd love to see this come to fruition, especially for events like the Chamber puts on, Winterfest. We'll definitely benefit from this, the Food Truck Festival, other events around the community. The infrastructure that you're planning to put into this would definitely be helpful, and I'm just anxious to see how it looks moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the council on this item?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Dan Roddy. I'm the West Region Manager for the Arizona State Parks and Trails. The Trust for the Public Lands recently put out a white paper, talked about parks as being the greatest social economic equalizer available. When you look at the challenges that communities face with the cost of living, mental health issues, recreation, the growth in outdoor recreation, a park like this really fits all those needs. And it does it in a manner that's going to pay for itself over and over again. In 1858, the citizens of New York City got together and created Central Park. That's some of the most valuable property in the world. And it's something that they collectively decided to do and set aside for the betterment of the entire community. In 1965, the state of Arizona, working with the people here locally in Lake Havasu City, set aside a bunch of land for state parks. This is an opportunity for the people of Lake Havasu City to do the same thing here. To echo what some of the few speakers just put out, it might not have everything we want. It might not be exactly what we think is the best solution for building that future, but it is a step towards that future. In the industry of parks and recreation, we look not just at what did I do today, but what did I do today that's going to leave a legacy? Because I'm not going to be in this spot forever. I'm only here for a short while. But what did I do today that's building that future? This gives us an opportunity to build for that future. I hope we'll all take advantage of it. And I would applaud Lake Havasu City, knowing how hard it is to get grant funding for the people of Lake Havasu City and the people working for Lake Havasu City to be able to quickly follow up with the success of the SLIF grant for the Site 6 improvements and follow that up with a $1 million Land Water Conservation Fund award is amazing. That doesn't just happen. That's hard work, good thought, good preparation, and good execution that makes that happen. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Reagan Ross. I'll make this short and sweet. I have the pleasure of staring at that grass lot for 8 hours every day, 40 hours a week. It is used a lot. I also have the pleasure of watching people then walk into my establishment and use the restroom. I probably go through over 50 rolls of toilet paper a week. Hotel, that might not be a lot, but for my business, it's a lot of toilet paper. Desert Storm. I know it's once a year and we love the event downtown, but this year I actually rented porta potties to put in my parking lot just so we did not have the wear and tear on our plumbing. It took me 30 minutes to lock my front door. People were offering to buy me shots of whiskey just to use my bathroom because they hate porta potties. The splash pad has porta potties. They walk across the street and use my restroom. I now have locks on my restrooms. And those poor teenagers at Wild Coffee get beat up every day about locks on my bathrooms. So I encourage you. I love this plan. I was never a fan of the circular design. I've thrown a lot of events on this lot. Electricity is a major must. It's nothing like eating a hamburger with gasoline blowing in your face from the generators. So electricity is wonderful. The organizers can figure out shade. There's 10 companies. There's pop-ups. So my big two have been from day one, electricity and bathrooms. Please, please, bathrooms. I'll work with Seafeld Joelle and I work great together to get bathrooms if that's what we have to do. But it is a must, and it's not fair to put it on the property owners downtown. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Leonard Lacey. I'm a resident here. I really think that we do need a park uptown like this. I've worked events here. It's just needs to be a little bit safer, a little bit more accommodating for the public. If we have some yellow or gold concrete we can put around it, we'll make it a gear. Why not? But I was in the Seafield project with the Leadership Academy, and to be able to see everybody able to use the park more useful for assisting in compliance would be nice in that area for this park uptown. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this item?
Tim Murray. I come from New England. It's cold there. I came here and it's hot. That's a novel idea, huh? I've been downtown. I spent a lot of time downtown. My wife and I enjoyed the businesses that are down there. I certainly enjoy the restaurants. So I don't support it. Okay, I don't support it. I'm not in favor of it. Okay, I've seen what's been down there during Desert Storm and everything else, and yeah, there's some issue getting in there. Okay, but I walked it. I'm 74 years old. I was down there for 2 days. Okay, and I didn't see any ambulances down there about people that couldn't get in there. I'm not trying to be funny. Okay, people done a lot of work to this. Okay, but I don't believe it's the right way to go. Maybe you take a break. Maybe we step back. Okay. It's a separate item, and I do agree with Nancy. It's abominable, the parks in this community. Young girls play down at Sarah Park and other places. They play under the lights, and I'm not picking on girls. God, I got 7 of them. How can you put them out there with the lighting system that's out there, and it's separate from this? You haven't taken care of the existing parks, and now you're going to put another one there, and you're going to have to add more money to your budget. Something's got to be done down there. But not this. And before you go too far, like I said, before you go too far, I was disappointed as I went down there and watched night baseball, and young people out there who are the biggest asset that we have, playing under lighting and playing on fields that I was an ASA umpire a long, long time ago before I got gray. And I stopped the game one night because of the lighting. And I got into trouble with the 2 coaches, but at the end of the day, we agreed, you got to take care of the stuff. It's not fair to put people out there. These young people shouldn't be operating under that type of circumstances. It's separate from this, but I'll tell you right now, I'm disappointed, to be honest with you, in what I saw and how they were maintained. And you need to do something there as a separate item, but I can't see this at all. It just doesn't make sense. At 130 degrees Fahrenheit during a weekday, I'm not going to go down there and sit there in the park. I'm not. I'm going to do something else. I'll go down to a restaurant and eat or something. But this doesn't make sense to me. You got to do something, but this isn't it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the City Council on this item? All right. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to Council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah, Councilmember Campbell.
For staff. Is the building directly behind it, where you're saying the access is coming in? The reason why I think of that is when I met Sam there today, I said, I'll meet you there. The first place I parked was in the parking lot. I'm sure it's parking in common. Is that a parking in common property where the medical buildings are? It's like a pink building off of the corner of...
No, it's not.
It's not parking in common? Okay, so they can reserve all those spots. Okay, because that's the closest place I could get to it. So I just parked right there because I know that the other medical building on the other side is packed all the time. They're all parked in the dirt as well. So if this had more parking, and I love all your comments, I really do. I'm listening to each and every one of you, and I wish I could fix it for all of us I really wish I could just push the button and say yes, but I have so many people that told me no as well. But I respect every one of your voices today. I mean, you this is a hard place to be some days, but today I'm going to stick with what I originally planned, because if the other parks in our community looked beautiful, not to mention when I talked to like the other parks director and all of our original trees that we had, remember we had that tree program with all the memorials on it. If you go around and look at those memorials, those are all fading. The trees are all grown out, and they're telling me the number of hours it takes just to maintain all of our trees, which are beautiful trees. I'm so glad we did it. But how much money are we going to continue to expect the budget to cover? We need staff, we need steps, we need police, we need fire, we need roads, we need water infrastructure. We need all these things. And I just today cannot vote. It's not the 2.6 million. It's the bathrooms. It's the additional. It's a total of $5.4 million. And I think the next item is going to be $155,000 for somebody to oversee this. So we're at about $5.5 million. And right today's day, we got this beautiful courthouse today. It's gorgeous. I appreciate it. If there was parking all in the back, even there's no bridge to even get across. I know they're all going to be parking across the street, behind all those businesses. They're going to be parking in that business area. I just can't do it. But thank you guys again for all coming up. I really do respect each and every one of your voices. I really do. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Moses?
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't on the Vision 2020 committee. My phone must have been on silent that day when they were giving out all these. But everybody who in this building that was on it, I really respect the work you guys did, because there were some really magical things that came out of those committees, and you guys did a lot of work to get there, and I really appreciate that. Parks are beautiful places. I've been down to, like, just going to the Cypress is one of our newer parks that we just did. Just going down there and watching my kids play soccer and hang out down there and seeing everybody, all the families and all the people. It's just such a beautiful thing. And ultimately, what we need more of is more gathering spaces. As human beings, that's really what we search and strive for is connection and feeling a part of our community. And having this lot be in the heart of our community, like it was kind of mentioned earlier, to have a gathering space like this just makes sense to me. I think it's a great idea that you guys came up with, and I'm happy to see that we kind of have a plan in place. It's way more than I was hoping it would be, but I kind of in the beginning thought it would start growing and getting there. But one of the beautiful things about Lake Havasu is our community. And when I look at Rotary Park was done by Rotarians. And I see a lot of my Rotary family in this building today, because Rotarians really are the movers and shakers of Lake Havasu, David. And if you ever want to come to a meeting, I know you're retiring soon, so we do a lot of really great things. But I'm looking to my Rotary family, Leonard, and to my club, and I think we can make some of these add-ons happen. The original vision was to be a private-public partnership. I've always been a huge advocate of that. The upper part up there, I'm still holding out hope one day we can get somebody in there to build up that part. That was a huge thing to me. That's why I was okay with it being left kind of untouched in the beginning, but I know we need to kind of finish it. So adding the grass, we can tear up grass easy if we need to bring in a private partnership to make this whole thing work. I have personally reached out to every developer that I know in this town to look for those partnerships, and nobody was biting. And I know James has done some similar work. James at the PED has done some similar work, and I just nobody's willing to jump on this with us yet. But as we've shown, if you create a model and you prove that it'll work, people follow. James has proven that with his First Friday event. That thing has grown tremendously. The amount of economic impact that has on the businesses down there, they'll all line up behind you, James, and thank you for the work that you've done on their behalf. So I'm okay starting with the base bid on this. I think it'll be a good step forward, and then we'll see, and we'll prove that it'll work, and we'll see what partners come out of the woodwork once we show our model is a good one. So I appreciate everyone's work on this, and I'll be voting for the base bid, and with the hopes that we can keep adding on to this and make it something we're really proud of. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Koch?
I'm not a big proponent of repeating things that have already been said. I don't think you just need to hear my voice just to hear it. But having served on this council now for 12 years, I was part of the original town hall. I was part of the chamber when our CEO at the time was part of the team that was on the winning team. I worked with James and his group for years when my former position. My former CEO at the hospital was the chairman of the PED board. I served on the PED board. I don't know how many renditions of this park I've seen since this project got started. At no fault of anyone's. There was a lot of things tried. There was a lot of effort put into this. There was a lot of money, a lot of time. The public-private partnership just didn't work out for whatever reason. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right place for whatever reason that was. But that doesn't mean we don't move forward with what we have now and what we can do and build upon it. So, I've seen the effort put in. I've seen what the community has said. The same people sitting in this room tonight are not the same people that were here when we started the ABC competition, nor will they be the same people sitting here 6 years from now. So I understand that there's not the full understanding of this process and the project and where it started, because obviously we'd be here forever tonight to go through every little detail of the start to finish. But I've lived it. I've seen it in depthly, and no, it's not the original vision of what we thought it was going to look like, but it's a moving forward point, and that's what we need to do. We need to get started on it. We purchased the lot for this. This is what we said we were going to do with the money. This is what it was intended for. This is what we won the money for. And I think it's a good starting point. And I think Council Member or Vice Mayor Moses is right. I think we have a lot of people in this community that are going to step up and see this. If we take the first step, it's only a building block for what we can continue to do. And I think watching all the projects that have happened at Rotary Park, from the skate park to all the additional playground equipment and things, I think it just builds, but we have to give it a starting point. So I'm happy to see that we're finally at a point where we can make a decision to move forward or not tonight. And then if the choice is that we move forward, then we've got a stepping stone for the community to build upon. So I'm very excited.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan?
Motion?
Please.
I move to award the base bid for the construction of the Downtown Catalyst rebid project to Concord General Contracting Incorporated in the amount of $2,646,465.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan. We have a second from Councilmember Lane. I do want to just close the loop real quick on a couple of things. There was a lot of discussion about maintenance of this facility and where is the cost going to be. We own the facility now and we maintain it. So we already are mowing the grass. We're watering it. We're doing the maintenance in that area. There's the ability to have multiple things. We don't have to have just one priority. So we do have investments in our current budget and in our proposed budget to take care of some of our other park amenities in other areas. So you don't have to have one for the other. We're able to balance all of those. This area also gives the most flexibility for potential uses. So, as partners come available, which I think many council members and many members that spoke at the public hearing brought up different partnerships that we'll have. We're talking about adding all of these different numbers, and it comes up to this really high number. If we added all the park amenities that have been added to Rotary Park or Jack Hardy Park or Wheeler Park over the years as new members of our community came, or new opportunities or new passion projects came forward, they would all be in excess. There's been a lot of numbers thrown out tonight. I just want to make sure that we understand that this is $2.6 million is what this motion is in front of us. It's not $5 million. It's not $4 million. It's $2.6 million. Any additional conversation or development that would occur in this area would go through a public process with partners and or a budget process there. But it's $2.6 million, which is under the amount we have budgeted. And again, it's a huge win that 91% of this is funded with grant dollars in some fashion. I mean, it's a huge win. Other communities would be doing cartwheels to be able to have this opportunity in front of them to enhance an area. So I just wanted to close the loop on a few of the public comments. Does any other council member have any comments before we take the vote? All right, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. You can clap for that. We did the bridge and we clapped for it. Right. All right. Well, thank you. We'll move on to item 7.7, which is approve the professional service agreement with Dig Studio Inc. for the construction observations during the construction phase services of the Downtown Catalyst project. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. As a component now, moving forward with the Downtown Catalyst project, we do have the construction management component to partner with Dig Studios. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. Obviously, we just saw the main PowerPoint presentation. The city will be doing a good portion of the CM, what we call it, some of the day-to-day inspections, the running of the weekly meetings, processing of pay apps, and et cetera, But we do rely on Dig Studios and their expertise and their sub-consultant team to provide answers to a variety of specialty things that come up. They have a landscape architect on their team. They have obviously an architect that'll be visiting the site periodically. They have electrical team that will come and do certain special inspections in the civil and structural. So they're a component, the expertise in areas that we do not have the expertise for something like this. We have went back and forth and negotiated a price of $155,000, which staff seems reasonable, and therefore we would recommend award of the approve the professional service agreement with Dig Studios Incorporated for construction observation during the construction phase of the Downtown Catalyst project in the amount of $155,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Are there any questions from members of council for Mr. Hart on this item? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item?
Robert Fisher. I got another 2 cents worth about that. How come that $155,000 wasn't included in the price of the whole project when we saw it presented earlier? Seems to me that you knew this was coming. Why wasn't that included in the price? Thank you.
Great question, Mr. Fisher. We saw it and you saw it coming. So our agendas are all posted online, and it's standard that you have a companion item to award a bid, but this number was allocated in the budget for this item. So this was an item that was anticipated, a companion item for a separate agreement for the construction management services. Would anyone else like to address the city council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Koch.
Motion.
Please.
I move to approve the professional services agreement with Dig Studios, Inc. for the construction observations during the construction phase of the Downtown Catalyst project in the amount of $155,000.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch. We have a second from Vice Mayor Moses. Is there any additional discussion? We'll just wait just a moment for Councilmember Lane just so we can get a full vote. All right, so we have a motion from Councilmember Koch to approve the professional service agreement with Dig Studios for construction observations during the construction phase of the Downtown Catalyst project in the amount of $155,000. That was seconded by Vice Mayor Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you. All right, item 7.8 is introduce ordinance number 24-1334, amending City Code Chapter 10.16, display of vehicles for sale, Article 3, vehicles for sale on public property, to prohibit the sale of vehicles on all city-owned and controlled property. Ms. Gary.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As stated, this item is the introduction of an ordinance amending the City Code to regulate the display of vehicles on city property for sale. In 2007, the City Council adopted Article 3 of City Code Chapter 10.16 to regulate the display of vehicles for sale within the Highway 95 corridor, which provided effective tools. City staff is encountering difficulties with people parking vehicles for sale, including recreational vehicles, watercraft, motorcycles, trailers, and other similar items upon city-owned or city-controlled property. Some areas are becoming so congested with vehicles for sale that there are few spots for people to park. An example of such a parking lot is at the corner of McCulloch Boulevard and Beachcomber Boulevard on the island. Additional tools are needed to address this problem. In researching this matter, the majority of municipalities have codes prohibiting the parking of vehicles for sale on all public property. The proposed ordinance prohibits a vehicle to be parked or displayed for the primary purpose of advertising the vehicle for sale upon any city-owned or city-controlled property without the city's permission. Vehicles broadly defined and includes a motor vehicle, pickup truck, van, watercraft, ATV, motorcycle, recreational vehicle, camper, motorhome, construction equipment, farm equipment, trailer, or similar vehicle. This will be enforced by the police department. Other suggested housekeeping item revisions include correcting a typographical error of the spelling of publicity, revisions making sections 1016-110 only applicable to section 1016-100 because we've added a new section. Adding the new section also caused a renumbering to be done, and then there's a reference that's in the authorization portion of the code where the section doesn't exist, so we had it removed. Staff recommends introducing the proposed ordinance, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Gary. So if this was to be adopted or approved this evening by council, when would it go into effect? Would it be immediately?
No, so it'll just be introduced tonight. If it's introduced, then it will come back for adoption at the next available city council meeting in 2 weeks, and then it wouldn't go into effect until 30 days after that. Excellent. Or unless you wanted to be further out in the future, and then we can make an effective date whenever you think is appropriate.
Thank you. And then it is permissible for someone that's driving their car to go use the island walking path and they're trying to sell it with a for sale sign to be able to park in that area for that time that they're using the facility?
Absolutely. It only prohibits when you park it there for the primary purpose of parking it there for sale. So if a vehicle is parked there all day, every day, 5 days, 7 days out of the week, then the intent is probably to sell it and not just to use the walking path.
Thank you. Are there other questions from members of the council for Ms. Gary? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this item?
I'm Pam Swenson. I have a question with regards to that. How are you going to monitor if someone is parking there every day? Who's going to monitor that? Because I can see someone who works in an area, parks in a public parking lot every day to go to work. Their car is there 8-9 hours a day. Who is going to monitor that to say that their purpose is to go to work versus being parked there all day to sell the vehicle? Because is that going to be up to the police department's discretion or whose? I just see that it's going to be problematic in trying to enforce that aspect of it.
Yeah, thank you. This is an expansion of a code section we already have that has been pretty effective on Highway 95. This now expands that area. So if it's your daily driver and you happen to work in a location that has a public owned lot and you park in that with that for sale sign, that would be permissible. But the police department and or code enforcement would be responsible for that.
Okay, I understand that. I can just see that it can be problematic because I've just been involved in cases where someone will put in a complaint about somebody not knowing that necessarily they were there on a daily basis for something like work. And it can be a nuisance when someone has to deal with that personally when they know that they're there legitimately. And I just can see that it's a problem. So somehow I just think it needs to be considered.
Sure. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you very much for having these meetings. It gives me some exercise, and I really appreciate it. I was curious a lot about some of that whole vehicles for sale on public property. How many public property city-owned? You're only talking about city-owned sites, correct? So how many places are that? Does that actually affect?
Yeah, I'd invite you to go to our city website and /maps, lhcaz.gov/maps, and look at the GIS maps with a layer of our city-owned parking lots. But we have several lots in the downtown area. We have several lots, or we have the lot that Ms. Gary referred to, Beachcomber and McCulloch. And again, take a look at the website and you'll be able to see all of the city-owned lots.
Okay, and then the city-owned website lot on Beachcomber and McCulloch, isn't that about to get changed with the new bridge? Won't that lot possibly be eliminated somehow?
Potentially. We'll see as we go into the next phase, but potentially that's in the same area that we saw this evening.
Okay, and then on the island itself, since that was the lot that brought this to your attention, there's tons of parking everywhere, and I don't understand how people parking in the lot with their boat or whatever, how that affects anybody from being able to park on the island and walk the island path. It's a rather large path and a lot of parking, especially on the, I call it the California side of the island. And I was also wondering if I happen to come to pay the water bill at the city offices and my car's for sale, do I have to take the for sale sign out in order to pay the water bill?
That's fine. You can, if it's your daily driver and you're using your vehicle with a for sale sign on it to do your daily business or driving around, you're perfectly fine for that.
You don't know how many city parking lots this is affecting? I mean, well, obviously all of them, but does it also affect the co-owned parking lots that are on McCulloch, well, the back of McCulloch? And
Well, we don't have co-owned. We have parking in common, which are by the property owners. So this impacts all city-owned property. If you want to know what those look like, just go to the GIS website at lhcaz.gov/maps, and you can see that overlay.
Okay. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the city council on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Bring it back to council for any questions, comments, or a motion.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Dolan?
Motion.
Please.
I move to introduce ordinance number 24-1334, amending chapter 10.16, article 3, vehicle for sale on city property.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan, a second from Vice Mayor Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7.9 is award professional services agreement for ambulance medical billing to Action Ambulance Billing, LLC. Chief Palafis.
Honorable Mayor, council members, good evening. Before you is a professional agreement for ambulance billing. The Lake Havasu City Fire Department will be granted a license to operate 911 advanced life support ground ambulance transport underneath the Arizona Department of Health Services Certificate of Necessity program. It's just important to note that the Arizona Department of Health establishes and regulates the ambulance transports rates within the state of Arizona for all CON holders. During the CON process, during our application, Lake Havasu City ambulance transport rates are the same as River Medical, except for one exception is our standby rate, which is 2 cents difference. Due to the complexity of the nature of ambulance billing in compliance with Medicare and Arizona Department of Health Services reporting requirements, municipalities usually put out these functions for ambulance billing to a service provider to perform these functions. The city received 5 complete responses to a request for proposal issued on February 22nd, 2024 for ambulance billing. The RFP specified the evaluation process that would be used to evaluate the proposal. The proposal submitted by Action Ambulance Billing, LLC, was determined to meet all the requirements specified and ranked the highest. The company's experience and ability to perform were confirmed by reference checks and their capabilities of performing this function for us. Underneath the billing approach for the ambulance, the Action Ambulance Billing will be an extension of the city. They are going to represent us for collecting ambulance billing for all of our transports on behalf of our patients that we transport. It's important to note that the funds generated by the ambulance medical plays a significant role in providing financial support to the city's emergency medical services. The service users or respected medical insurance providers bear the cost for ambulance transports, ensuring that we have quality emergency medical care is available for all those in needs. The charge for this collection is a 5.25% of monthly revenues collected and a one-time fee for setting up our transaction for between the Action Ambulance Billing. So they're only going to get paid if they collect. So our recommendation is to award the service agreement for a 3-year term with 2 possible years extension for Action Ambulance Billing LLC to perform the ambulance billing for a medical transport program. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer it for you.
Thank you, Chief. And we're getting one step closer. So congratulations as we go down. You missed one of the important things. The one-time setup fee is only $500.
Yes, it is.
$500. It's so inexpensive to set up something like this. So thank you for that presentation. Are there any questions for the Chief or members of the council? All right, this is a public hearing where I would like to address the City Council on this item. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor, motion.
Councilmember Lane, please.
I move to award the professional services agreement for ambulance medical billing to Action Ambulance Billing LLC for a 3-year term with the option to renew for an additional 2-year term. Authorize the city manager to execute the agreement and authorize city staff to exercise the renewal option.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Lane, a second from Councilmember Campbell. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. And our final public hearing, item 7.10, approve amendment number 1 to the cooperative purchasing agreement for emergency medical supplies and annual expenditures over $50,000 with Bound Tree Medical LLC. Chief Palafis.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, council members, before you is a procurement process that we are also amending our cooperative agreement where we purchase our medical equipment for any medical disposable equipment that we use on our engines and on our ambulances that will be going in service. Due to our procurement regulations of $50,000, we are going to exceed that amount for this annual purchase. All the amount that we are spending is totaling not to exceed about $95,000, but which has been budgeted for in our fiscal year. So due to the procurement process, we have to come before because we're exceeding this, but we're also amending this cooperative agreement so we can use it further for further purchasing of equipment. The items that are being used is to outfit our 2 new ambulances that we're prepping to receive at the end of July, August timeframe in 2024. So we're just before you to get approval to exceed this amount for procurement reasons and amend the cooperative agreement. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer it for you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for members of the council for Chief Palafis? All right. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the City Council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion or possible motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Dolan?
Motion.
Please.
I move to approve of amendment number 1 to cooperative purchase agreement for emergency medical supplies with Bound Tree Medical LLC, authorize expenditures exceeding $50,000 annually for the term and any renewals of the agreement, and authorize city staff to renew the agreement through June 30th, 2025.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan, a second from Vice Mayor Moses. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Next item on our agenda is the call to the public. This is an opportunity where citizens have to address the City Council on items within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City. Your comments are limited to 3 minutes. There is a light indicator countdown on the screens. Again, as I mentioned earlier, this is not an opportunity where we have a two-way conversation. We can listen intently and maybe direct staff possibly, but since it's not on the agenda, we can't have that two-way conversation. You don't have to sign up to speak at call to the public, but we did have a couple of citizens do so. So we'll start with Mr. Lacey.
Thank you. My name's Leonard Lacey. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Happy to be here tonight. I just wanted to represent Rotary.org and Rotary here in town. So I wanted to thank the city and the Parks Department with the Seafeld and the Leadership Academy for everyone that helped out with that. Also with all my members and team members of the Leadership Academy and everybody that made it happen. We're really excited to get this completed and accomplished in Rotary Park. Since that process, I'm in Club Leadership Academy, so I have a couple of comments and a couple of things here about the town. I took it to Sunrise Rotary, and we made up a little thing, so here we go. Rotary International stands as a beacon of service and community and development in every city that it touches and exists. We are fortunate in our city to have 3 active Rotary clubs. Tonight, I wanted to let you know, as a council and Rotary International does to help the community and around the world, and in Lake Havasu City, we have had volunteers that served over 47 million hours of annual in contributions in volunteer time. They're here in Lake Havasu. The funds of our clubs raised go towards children programs, veterans programs, and improved our city and also infrastructure for the park. These volunteer hours consistently repeat as saving the community of approximately $850 million. 73% of Rotarians rate the emphasis of service above self as one of the organization's major attractions to its members. All of our Lake Havasu City Rotary Clubs are dedicated to community and to help our city in its coming financial year as many ways as possible. Here in our town, we do have 3 amazing clubs. We've been here since 1971, London Bridge Rotary, Lake Havasu City Rotary, and Sunrise Rotary. We are all focused on youth, community services, mental health, and environmental. Rotary has new visions and a new action plan, and we're looking forward to implement that into our community. If anyone has any questions, they can get a hold of me or look up London Bridge Rotary, Lake Havasu City Rotary, Sunrise Rotary, or Rotary.org. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lacey. And then we have, Councilmember Lane, I did count 8 Rotarians sitting in this room versus maybe 2 Kiwanians, but Ms. DeZero, you signed up as well?
Thank you, Mayor, as one of the 8 and council members. I'm so glad we have a week designated to honor our men and women who protect us every day and night. And on behalf of me, my family, and friends, we just wanted to say thank you to each and every officer that we have here in Lake Havasu City, both with our police department and our sheriff's department. I've heard stories of friends who needed the Havasu police, and when called, they showed up quickly, were professional, and helped them resolve their issues. In one case, a widowed friend of mine relayed several days later the officer that handled her situation actually came back to check on her just to make sure she was okay. These are people who care about our community. These are our police officers. We also want to thank the spouses and children of these officers. As a family who live with the understanding that your loved one may not come home. Plus, they miss out on being able to be at various celebrations such as birthdays, graduations, or holidays. Please know that your loved ones are wanted, respected, and appreciated here in Lake Havasu. We're fortunate to have Chief Sterling and his leadership team here in Havasu, as well as all the officers that report to them and help keep our great city the safe place that it is. Please know that we pray for each and every one of you every day that God grants you wisdom and safety as you do this very complex job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes speakers that signed up for Call to the Public, but would anyone else like to address the City Council during Call to the Public?
Let me say the same thing that Joan said. I think this city, and I've lived across the country, as you've all known, I've never seen a police department or a fire department as competent as what you have here. Yesterday afternoon, there was a fire in this city, and I happened to be in a grocery store, and somebody said, "What's going on?" And I didn't know how to respond to it, but I did. And I said to her, "If you have a problem here in this city, pick up that phone and call 911. You're going to get great cops, you get great firemen. There's great leadership here. These two gentlemen do a great job in what they do, and I'm proud of them. I was part of Chief Philosophy. It's getting late at night, right?
That might stick, Chief.
Was it the mic? Well, I didn't hear what you said. No. He's a great person. I have the opportunity to be frank with you. Some of you know that I was in the CERT team or on the CERT team for a long time, and that was a great exposure for me to work at Chief P. Does that work? Yeah, I hope so. I'm moving on to other things, one of which is I like what you all do down here. You do a great job. There were differences of opinion tonight on things, right? But that's what's great about this country. You won't get this in other places of the world, okay? You can stand up, voice your opinion, speak what's on your mind, and people listen, okay? So I give that credit to all of you, okay? It's a great job you do. You listen, and maybe we don't get what we want every time, but that's the way life is, okay? You don't get everything you want. I wanted to say something else. The communication in this community is great. You can come to a city council meeting. You can go and have a coffee with the mayor and get a donut. For me, it's great. The newspapers, I have a bunch of newspapers in the back. I'm not going to bring them up. 5 of them, 5 days worth of newspapers. Great coverage in this community. If you don't know what's going on in this community, I don't know what more you all can do for it, okay? And, the Facebook's out there. Channel 4 is fantastic. I can look at myself in a couple of days standing up here. That's going to be awesome. Yeah, I'm not a comedian, though. Riverview News. And my biggest disappointment last week, to be quite frank with you, is that I ended up getting tied up to something else, and I didn't get down to the Site 6 ribbon cutting ceremony. That's an engineering great job. I don't know who the lead was on that. I've been in maintenance and engineering my entire career. Floating a concrete slab down into water is amazing, and I don't know where they came up with that, but kudos to whoever that was, and someday I hope I can get to shake their hand. Let me move on. What's the clock? Oh boy, I'm out of time already. I didn't realize that. I read the budget. I went through the budget. I have questions on the budget. I'm not going to get into it tonight, obviously. I'm going to send some notes out from what I think, and I'll get them out to you. And it's all about making the city better. I think this is it's a great community. Okay, we should be proud of what we have here, and I'm proud of living here. And in the end, I say this: God bless America, and God bless our troops. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the city council during call to the public? All right, we'll go ahead and close the call to the public. Item 9, current events. Are there any council committee reports? Yeah, Councilmember Koch.
Just real quick, last week, thank you for coming to the hospital and celebrating Nurses Week with us. And this week we are in full swing, as we're saying, at the hospital. We have a baseball-themed hospital week celebrating all of our hospital workers. So if you know a hospital worker or you're in the hospital for any reason this week, thank everyone there. They do a great job, and it's sometimes thankless. So really proud of them and everything that they do, and we're happy to celebrate them this week.
Well, thank you. Are there any other council committee reports? All right, future meetings. Our next meeting is Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, tomorrow. It's a special meeting at 11 a.m. And then on Tuesday, May 28th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m., we'll also have a regular meeting. Item 11, are there any future discussion items? Item 12, motion to adjourn. We are adjourned. Thank you for being here. Be kind. We'll see you next time.